where to fund a new force. Even heavily pro-European populations are likely to resist that. The cost isn't only financial. An integrated force means the end of sovereign rights over military decisions. It also needs unity to function. Overcoming the challenges involved is an uphill battle. So for now, it remains an undefined, unfeasible, and politically divisive idea. This edition of The Inquiry was presented by me, Charmaine Cozier. The producer was Daniel Rosny, researcher Maeve Sheffer, editor Tara McDermott, and technical producer Toby James.
That was The Inquiry from the BBC. I'm Saroja Coelho here on CBC Radio 1. Have a great day.
Well, good morning, Manitoba, and hello, Winnipeg. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio, and we're live downtown in our studios at CBC. 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. And we is a big team of folks. So I'm going to say good morning to everybody in a moment. First, I just want to mention a couple of things. Hello, Flin Flon. Y'all ready to go home today? So yes, evacuees will be heading home. We'll hear more about that in the news throughout the morning. Also, an air quality warning has been issued today for Lynn Lake. So smoke from wildfires up north is still affecting that community. Here in southern Manitoba, Winnipeg will be sunny today and a nice high of 22. Thompson's sunny and a high of 22. Boo. Not boo for you, Thompson, but boo for me, because Winnipeg's much different. Mainly cloudy and a 30% chance of showers this morning. Our high is 24, so still not too bad. We just don't have that clear day like they do up north. In Brandon, mainly cloudy as well. Chance of showers, risk of a thunderstorm, and a high of 23. All right, let's get started and say good morning to the team now. Sarah Sanders, good morning. Sarah directs the show and covers the commute. Abby Adeyemi, good morning to you. Abby is our technical producer on the show and covers weather on air. And good morning, Brad Lillies, waving hello to you on YouTube. Brad is our producer of the YouTube stream if you're watching the show today. All right, Heather Wells is here also. Let's get into that news now. Good morning.
Good morning. A Winnipeg woman is threatening legal action after Flair Airlines forced her to remove her hijab before boarding. Kazi Amin's passport photo was taken before she was wearing the head covering, and Flair says she looked like a different person. Amin had already cleared customs and security when she was asked to remove her hijab. She says she was humiliated. We're going to hear more about what happened. And a Winnipegger who was a role model for a generation of female hockey players is soon going to be immortalized in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Jennifer Botterill was just 18 when she won Olympic silver with Team Canada. She went on to win more Olympic medals and as well as world championships. We'll hear more coming up in our next local news at 6:30.
All right, super cool. She's going to be on the show live today as well, so I'm really looking forward to that. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
In addition to that, in the first hour of the show, the spotlight's on cats at a local festival of short films. So move over, Lassie. What have the cats got in store? We're going to find out in the first hour of the show, and some Winnipeg cats featured in. Also, seniors will be on the show today, or seniors advocate rather, talking about the transit changes.
On cue.
I'm Talia Schlanger, sitting in for Tom Power. Cressida Cowell is best known for her series How to Train Your Dragon, which sold over 7 million copies worldwide. She'll tell you about her new book, which stars an ordinary boy and some unexpected magic.
Make it feel very friendly, very accessible, something they want to read.
Cue this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The Trump administration is doubling down against claims its weekend attack on Iran failed to achieve its goals. 3 nuclear sites were hit, with Donald Trump immediately saying Iran's nuclear program was destroyed. But intelligence reports leaked to U.S. media say it only set the work back by a few months. The CBC's Karen Pauls is in Washington following developments. And Karen, reporters questioned Trump this morning about all this at the NATO summit in the Netherlands. What is the president saying today?
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump is drawing a comparison between his airstrikes on Iran and the U.S. use of nuclear bombs in Japan, saying both were used to end wars.
We hear it was obliteration. It was a virtual obliteration. When you take a look at the ground above, don't forget the flame is all underground. But everything above, if you look at the before and the after picture, everything above is burned black. I believe it was total obliteration.
Trump's defense secretary Pete Hegseth at the same NATO panel calling the operation flawless and questioning that leak.
We're doing a leak investigation with the FBI right now because this information is for internal purposes, battle damage assessments, and CNN and others are trying to spin it to make the president look bad when this was an overwhelming success.
Trump says Iran would not have agreed to a ceasefire with Israel if this attack had not been successful.
What's the reaction in Washington?
Well, lawmakers were supposed to get details at classified meetings yesterday, but they were moved to Thursday and Friday. Republicans are downplaying the need for a briefing, but Democrats are accusing the Trump White House of delaying them because of this report. Here's Democratic Senator Peter Welch.
We are all against Iran having a nuclear weapon. And President Trump did something that was very bold. The question is, was it effective? So we really want to get answers.
There are reports Iran moved its enriched uranium ahead of the U.S. strikes. Trump doesn't believe that happened because they acted so quickly. He doesn't rule out further strikes on Iran if it rebuilds its nuclear program, but says that's unlikely. Marcia.
All right. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Karen Pauls in Washington. The shaky ceasefire between Iran and Israel is holding. There are no reports of repeat violations like the ones that angered Donald Trump. But it is not so peaceful in Israel's other war, in Gaza. CBC correspondent Chris Brown has more from Jerusalem.
Israel lifted its restrictions on public gatherings, restarted flights at Ben Gurion Airport, and reopened schools. There have been no obvious breaches of the ceasefire from either Iran or Israel after a wobbly beginning. But Israel remains at war in Gaza against Hamas, where it has suffered some of its heaviest combat losses in months. The IDF says 7 soldiers were killed when their armored personnel carrier was attacked, bringing the total number of soldiers dead since Israel broke a ceasefire in late March to 30. Gaza health authorities say more than 56,000 people have been killed by Israeli attacks over the past 20 months, with hundreds of thousands of people suffering from malnourishment. Qatar has said it hopes to use this ceasefire with Iran to restart truce talks with Hamas. Outside Han Yunis, a CBC freelance videographer spoke to Bakr Awada, who said the world has stopped paying attention to Gaza. The UN Human Rights Agency says over 410 people have been killed by gunshots or shells fired by Israel's military in the last few weeks as they tried to reach one of only a handful of food distribution sites in Gaza. Chris Brown, CBC News, Jerusalem.
At the NATO Leaders Summit today in The Hague, alliance members are expected to formally vote to increase defense spending to 5% of GDP. Secretary General Mark Rutte told the U.S. president it would not have happened without his leadership.
With this 5%, the Europeans and the Canadians will equalize their defense spending with the United States. So this is not about American taxpayers paying more. This is about Europeans, Canadians paying more. This would not have happened if you would not have been elected in 2016 and re-elected last year.
Spain and Slovakia have expressed some criticism of the proposed boost in spending, but Rutte says he is confident the NATO allies will vote unanimously in favor of the move. Some of Brazil's top military officers are on trial. They're accused of helping former President Jair Bolsonaro attempt a coup after he lost the 2022 election. And yesterday, something significant happened in court. Lieutenant Colonel Mauro Cid was brought in to testify as part of a plea deal he signed. Cid faced the former defense minister, who's a general. Cid did not salute. It was a major break in military protocol, and analysts say it's a sign Brazil's top military brass can no longer act with impunity. British Columbia's health minister is under pressure to fix a pediatric crisis at the province's biggest interior hospital. Kelowna General Hospital closed its pediatric ward in May. It said it did not have enough doctors. As Brady Strachan reports, local politicians say it's a sign the healthcare system is failing.
The goal is to reopen it as soon as they can.
That's BC Health Minister Josie Osborne speaking about the crisis at Kelowna General Hospital. In late May, the Interior Health Authority shut down the pediatric inpatient ward at KGH for a period of at least 6 weeks, citing a shortage of pediatricians. Since the closure, however, multiple healthcare workers have come forward with a different narrative.
We haven't had the right environment to work in.
Earlier this month, Dr. Alicia Mackenzie-Feder told CBC News she and 6 other pediatricians left the hospital 2 years ago because of unmanageable caseloads.
And so it's not that there's a shortage of physicians, it's that the system doesn't exist for them to work safely and sustainably.
KGH is one of only 2 tertiary referral hospitals in the region. With the ward closed, some children are being transferred to other hospitals for ongoing care.
We are in the middle of a collapse of our healthcare system.
Gavin Dew is an MLA for the BC Conservative Party in Kelowna. He's calling on the health minister to address the crisis through a change at the top of the health authority.
She is not talking and listening to frontline people here. They do not have confidence in the current leadership of Interior Health.
With the closure now into its 5th week, neither the health authority nor the minister would say when services will be restored. Officials say 1 new pediatrician will join KGH this summer, with 2 more coming in the fall. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Kelowna.
Wildfires are forcing Yukon to cut its annual canoe and kayak race short. The Yukon River Quest is one of the longest paddling races in the world. Spokesperson Ava Holland says the decision to shorten the race is difficult but necessary.
It just became clear that it was the right thing to do to not be a drain on resources at a pretty tense time in Dawson. It's disappointing, but I think it's the right and the responsible thing to do when Dawson is dealing with multiple evacuation alerts.
The racecourse usually follows an old gold rush route from Whitehorse to Dawson City. It will now finish just shy of the original halfway point. This is the 2nd year in a row wildfires near Dawson have affected the Yukon River Quest. About 5,000 residents of Flin Flon are getting the green light to return home. Wildfires forced people in the northern Manitoba city to evacuate about a month ago. As Cameron McIntosh reports, many are anxious to get back.
I thought I'm just going to get something with flames on it to represent kind of the beast that drove us out of there.
A flaming monster is tattooed on Kelly Sherman's forearm.
We ran out of things to do, so I thought we'd go and get tattoos.
29 days ago, a wildfire forced he and his family to evacuate from their home in Flin Flon. They've been living in a hotel. Today, they're able to go home.
9 o'clock when that opens, we're going to be one of the first ones in line. We want to get home.
The fire never did get into Flin Flon, but some homes surrounding it and parts of neighboring Denair Beach were lost. The forest surrounding the city is burnt out. Pauline Nabis didn't lose her home, but says the fire is having a psychological impact on the community.
It's going to be different because of the forest fire, of course.
Most of Manitoba's 21,000 fire evacuees have either returned to their homes or soon will be. 7 wildfires remain out of control, but no longer threaten communities.
We lifted the province-wide wildfire state of emergency.
Earlier this week, Premier Wab Kinew said the province no longer needs emergency powers to manage the fires, but returning evacuees will still feel their presence. Kristen Hayward is with the Manitoba Wildfire Service.
People can still expect to see smoke and active flames at times.
The threat of new fires remains high, with the forecast calling for a hot and dry summer ahead. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, Manitoba. And as you just heard Cam mentioning, it will be a good morning for people returning to Flin Flon after a long haul here in the south. So good luck on your travels, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. We're live in downtown Winnipeg on CBC, 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and YouTube. This is your morning show, Information Radio. Well, in addition to the Flin Flon story, this hour on the show, we're going to be talking about something super fun. The spotlight is all on cats at a local festival of short films. We're going to get a preview, and we're going to hear about some famous Winnipeg cats who are involved in the work. Also, to much more serious matters, we will build on the conversations in a moment that you've been hearing on World Report about U.S. U.S. President Donald Trump, who has been front and center at the annual NATO summit in The Hague today. So stay tuned. We'll have some more analysis of what's been said. And you also may have heard Cam just mentioned that we have hot, dry weather and a hot summer ahead. Can you tell the difference between heat stroke and just feeling a little bit too hot out there? We're going to have our annual conversation on our medical column this morning about what exactly heat stroke is, what to watch for, and how to be, when you should be concerned about loved ones. So our medical column's coming up just before 7 o'clock. Right now, there's a lot of news developing here. So Heather Wells is in with more headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a 23-year-old woman now fears for her safety after being attacked in Osborne Village. CBC is only using her first name, Tanpreet. She was walking home after work late Sunday night from a bus stop on Osborne. She says two people came from behind, knocked her to the ground, and stabbed her multiple times. Tanpreet says she now wants to go home to India. Winnipeg police say no arrests have been made. A Winnipeg woman is threatening legal action after Flair Airlines forced her to remove her hijab before boarding. Kazi Amin says she's not allowed to remove her hijab in public and says she was humiliated. We'll hear that story as well in our next local news coming up at 6:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
With a look at our weather today, here now is Abby Adiemi.
Yeah, we're going to see more clouds roll in across the region this morning. It's going to be a bit cooler than yesterday, looking at conditions from south all the way up north. We do have the air quality warning still in effect for Lynn Lake and nearby areas due to that smoke from the forest fires, and the air won't be really clean through the day. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at 13 and we are warming up close to 25, 26 today.
All right. Thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Tiara Sanders covers the commute on the program and is here, I'm guessing, to offer the phone number for the show.
Yes. Nothing on the commuter line so far, just getting the morning started. If there is something slowing you down out there, whether you are here in Winnipeg or out on the highways, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
All right, let's talk Donald Trump at The Hague. Christian Leuprecht is with us, professor at the Royal Military College in Queen's University and editor of the Canadian Military Journal, and he's here early via Zoom. He joins us from Brussels. Hi there.
Marcia, hello.
So what has happened latest? What's the latest since U.S. President Donald Trump arrived in The Hague? I know we've heard a little on World Report, but if you can elaborate for us and sort of set us in what exactly is the latest here.
Well, the latest is, of course, that we know the text messages that the Secretary General of NATO exchanged with the U.S. President. And I think, this could go one of two ways. One is you might need to be a little careful when you text POTUS, but, we should all be careful with what we text every day anyways. Or this is an information operation to show that, the family's all well and everybody gets along and is on the same page. You'll remember at the beginning of May when Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, and the German Chancellor Friedrich Merz traveled to Kiev, all of a sudden Macron pulled out his phone and he called President Trump. So I think this is just a way of showing that everybody's kind of talking to one another and not to worry.
What are other NATO leaders saying about the U.S. strike on Iran's nuclear facilities?
Well, it seems that the critics are surprisingly quiet. And those people who are speaking up are the people who've been quite forcefully supportive. First and foremost, the German Chancellor, who much to the consternation and to some controversy in Germany has been very explicit that he's clearly behind the strikes by the U.S. and by Israel, Israel's right to defend itself, that Iran must never get a nuclear weapon, and that he also believes that these strikes were in line with international law. So we seem to kind of, the voice from NATO leaders seems to be a voice of support.
Obviously, the ceasefire that Donald Trump is trying to hold together between Israel and Iran is on the agenda. Also, though, Russia's war in Ukraine, military spending by NATO members. We just heard some of that analysis, Christian. What is on the agenda for today?
Well, actually, not a whole lot. I mean, this is about the shortest summit that I can remember in recent history, and certainly since Russia's war of aggression on Ukraine. The summit is very carefully choreographed. It's been prepared for months precisely to avoid any controversy or conflagration. So I think everybody wants to let Trump walk away with the win, that he can say that he got everybody to 5%. Now, of course, if you look at the details, we kind of have about 10 years to get there. You know, remember Canada, we committed at the Wales summit in 2014 that we'd spend 2%. This year, the Prime Minister finally announces that we'll actually spend 2%. But if you look at the details, he actually is putting $9 billion on the table, and we're still missing about $12 to $14 billion. But, you know, so it gives people some time to kind of work out the details. Trump is claiming this as, you know, his leadership, like no other president, at least since the end of the Cold War, has been able to do this. I see it as a failure of leadership by Trump. You know, people aren't spending more because the U.S. president is telling them to. They're spending more because they no longer trust the United States to have their back, and because they realize that they're going to be more on their own, and they better be prepared.
How does Canada look in this? We were talking yesterday, Christian, about the fact that, you know, Mark Carney's going to walk in there, our Prime Minister, and right away talk about what you mentioned, which is, okay, we initially were on track for 2032. I think it was that 2%. And now here we are pushing for further. How's that landing? How are other NATO countries responding to Canada's NATO commitments?
Okay, we were never on track for 2032. Those are just talking points by the government. In 2017, we developed a plan, Strong, Secure, Engage, so Canada's defense policy, that sort of would have gotten us close to 2% by 2027. But the government backloaded all the spending, and when sort of the bills came due, the government decided not to pay up. It cost us huge amounts of credibility internationally, especially with NATO member allies. You know, this is so let's be careful with sort of where.
Fair enough with the language. Yep.
The Prime Minister rightly pointing out this is going to be really expensive for Canada. I mean, just to get to 2%, and look at the numbers between the tax cut and the 9% on defense. We're now at a structural deficit on just federal government spending, direct federal government program spending of $65 billion on $140 billion of direct federal government spending. This is a huge structural deficit, and I'll be very interested to see how the Prime Minister intends to square that circle, because you can't cut your way out of it, and you can't even grow the economy out of it. So it'll be, so I think there's a reason why the federal government delayed tabling the budget.
Ukraine President Volodymyr Zelensky is attending kind of on the sidelines. Of course, he was on at last night's dinner. How was that? How was he received?
Yeah, so there's no official NATO-Ukraine summit this year. And I think this is in keeping with the way the U.S. president likes to do business. You'll recall he left the G7 early quite demonstrably to show that he will not do American business multilaterally. He will do American business bilaterally, whether it comes to Israel and Iran or whether it comes to dealing with Ukraine. And so the president is meeting bilaterally with the Ukrainian leader, and this is not an official part of the agenda. And of course, I chalk this up as another indication of a failure of U.S. leadership, because all the other allies are pretty aligned on the fact that Ukraine is strategically important, although they assign different levels of importance to Ukraine. And so we need to get used to a world where U.S. interests will no longer neatly align with ours. And so if we don't like the way the world is going in terms of international security, well, we should be reminded we left it up to the Americans for 25 years. And so perhaps now is a good time to invest and actually take some responsibility, including for Canada.
Thank you very much for being with us. As always, appreciate your time.
It's been my pleasure. Take care.
You too. That's Christian Leuprecht, professor at the Royal Military College at Queen's University and editor of Canadian Military Journal. We reached him in Brussels. Leaders have been just wrapping up in The Hague. We'll have more coverage on local news and, of course, on Next World Report, which is coming up here on CBC at 7 o'clock.
Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill is one of the biggest debut albums of all time. But you ought to know that just 1 year prior to its release, she was rejected by every major label. So, what changed everything? From the creators of Under the Influence comes the summer series We Regret to Inform You. Wednesday morning at 11:30, 3:30 p.m. in Newfoundland and on demand on CBC Listen.
It is 6:20 a.m. It is 13 degrees and partly cloudy in Winnipeg. Today, a 30% chance of morning showers and also into early this afternoon. Those showers could stick with us, and our high today is going to be 24. Well, sorry, Lassie, but you might want to move over for a moment. Same with Beethoven. Same with Littlest Hobo. Cats are finally getting some well-deserved screen action and love as well. The Winnipeg International Film Festival, Feline Film Festival, is back for its second year of feline-focused short films. So it's happening on Saturday. If you want to check it out, it's at the Gas Station Arts Centre. The festival is going to showcase films from 7 different countries, like this one.
Howdy, strangers. What can we do for you?
I'm looking for Twitch Cassidy.
Twitch Cassidy? What do you want with him?
He's the desperado who shot my paw.
Twitch needs to take care of our vet bill.
Well, you can probably find him at the old Scratch and Post Saloon down yonder.
Much obliged, mister.
We don't want no trouble around these parts, stranger.
That's a clip from Catfight at the OK Corral, a cat pun parody of the Old West. And in it, you see real life cats, and then you see sort of the bubbles come up of the different dialogue that you're hearing in the film. The Winnipeg International Feline Film Festival is organized by Cats Manitoba. Amanda Heslop is the group's board chair, and with us this morning. Hi.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Super fun. I mean, they should get their due, Cats. They broke the internet. That's all the videos we watch, right?
Absolutely. And there's just so many amazing film creators out there that are focusing on cats, and just what they can do with cats and what they can showcase is just really amazing to watch. So it's really fun.
I got obsessed this week with a video that had cats and they did wrestling behind it. Like wrestling commentators were like cats taking down cats, and they've got some moves. Yeah. What do you love about hosting a cat-focused film festival in our city?
Well, I think it's really exciting because, kind of like you said, there has been a lot of focus on other animals, dogs, etc. And so we were able to kind of put the focus on cats. And it's really, there's so many different kind of things you can focus on. We were able to, just the clip that was just played is very interesting in the sense that it takes real footage of cats and just kind of plays around with what we think they're thinking and what they're doing and what they're capable of. But we're also able to focus on some documentary style films. There's animated films. There's different comedy, drama, just so many different areas you can go with it. And so it's really exciting to watch.
I was looking at some of the lineup. There's something called Krampus, a horror comedy from Iceland about a giant volcanic cat who punishes bad gift givers.
Yes, so that's a folk tale from that region, and it's a very wonderful film. We're very excited to be able to focus on that one. It is very well done, but again, I think it's nice to highlight kind of how different cultures incorporate cats into their legends and folklore, and just we can see that for hundreds and hundreds of years, cats have played such an important role, not only in our culture here in Canada, but across the world.
Speaking of which, Rigo Says Goodbye. This one comes from Mexico. It says it's a comedy.
Yes. Yes, it is a comedy. So, yeah, that's exactly what I mean. So I think we as a society kind of focus a lot on how we interact with our environment and the people and animals in our environment. But it's very interesting to see when you look across the world, a lot of the same differences or same and differences that are in those cultures. So that just, again, highlights the importance of the relationship between our feline friends, both here in Canada and abroad.
Rigo, apparently, by the way, listeners, is a diva cat threatening divorce over a delayed dinner. There is a Winnipeg, one of the films has a Winnipeg connection. So what is 8 Rooms?
8 Rooms is a very beautiful film. I don't want to give too much away about it. We're hoping that the film director will be present at the film festival. I think 8 Rooms is one of the more beautiful films that we have. It's multimedia, shows kind of a journey through multiple rooms, hence the name. And it just kind of highlights just kind of a journey through kind of a dreamscape and reality and how it mixes. And it's just very visually stunning. It is one of the most visually stunning short films I've ever seen. And we're just so excited to be able to focus on something that beautiful, and then also to be able to say that it was made right here in Winnipeg.
Lovely. There's a special meet and greet too with one of the judges.
Yes.
So what's this about?
So Littlefoot is our celebrity cat judge. Littlefoot is a local cat influencer. I did not know that I would ever say that phrase if you had asked me 20 years ago. But we are very lucky to have Littlefoot be a part of this. Littlefoot is such a great story and such a great example of what we hope with Cats Manitoba we can highlight, and what we hope the film festival also highlights, which is that these beautiful creatures come into our lives in many, many ways. You don't need to buy them. You don't need to go looking for them. Sometimes they find you, or you find them in weird, interesting places, and you can bring them into your family and give them a very good life. And that's exactly what happened with Littlefoot. Littlefoot was a rescue and now lives a very gorgeous, beautiful,
living the
luxury lifestyle,
Yep.
thanks to their family. So I think people are going to really enjoy meeting Littlefoot. It just adds that kind of, the films obviously highlight what we want to be talking about and showing and showcasing, but having Littlefoot come in real life also really does connect, we hope, with the audience of what we want the films to represent and what we are ultimately doing for the film festival, which is to raise money to help the cats in our province.
Yeah, because it goes to rescues and different initiatives like that, right? That's the fundraising element?
Yeah, so we, at Cats Manitoba, we are kind of, we're not a rescue, but we do kind of want to highlight different rescues. We are an advocacy group. We want information. There's a lot of misinformation about cats out there. There's a lot of gaps in information, and we wanted to be kind of able to fill that role where rescues are doing a lot more of the on-the-ground rescuing.
Like what? I just got to interject there. What misinformation are you thinking about there?
Maybe just even, things about cats not being, like, a lot of people have this idea that cats are, stuck indoors and they should be going outside and things like that. But, there's information to say that it's actually good for cats to be indoors. So things like that. Information about trap and release programs, information about fixing, and everything around kind of those areas. A lot of people know a lot about the kind of feral dog population in the province, but not a lot of people understand that there is also a feral cat population. Mm-hmm. So just information like that, and making sure there's a place where people can go to get that, and then doing outreach into the community.
One of the films that I haven't mentioned yet is called Loki, Ukrainian Cat, documenting the brave escape of a cat and their family during wartime. So now we've mentioned, Iceland, Ukraine, Mexico. How do you choose the films? What do you look for when you're choosing them?
Yeah, so we have an open kind of call. We have a period where people can submit their films. Really, the main criteria, obviously, other than the logistics of making sure it can fit into what we only have one night, but is just really that cats and the kind of relationships that people have with cats is really the highlight. We do obviously like to highlight as many countries. As we said, it is, I think, really interesting for people to see, how different cultures treat cats. And again, I think people are going to be really astounded with how similar everyone's relationship ultimately is to cats.
Thank you for being here. I'm going to mention, obviously, the date, and I know that it kicks off 5:30 and all these interactive events. Really appreciate you being up early and to share this with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
That is Amanda Heslop. She's with Cats Manitoba. So the Winnipeg International Feline Film Festival is happening June 28th. So if you're looking at your calendar, that is Sunday. I should be looking at my Saturday. I should look to my calendar. Amanda's like, Saturday. Saturday, June 28th. It's at the Gas Station Arts Center if you want to check it out. And most importantly, if you want to read about the lineup and plan when you're going to go and what you're going to see, for more information, go to catsmanitoba.com/catfilmfestival. So that's catsmanitoba.com/catfilmfestival.
This Canada Day, let's celebrate live from sunup to sundown on CBC with special coverage, highlights from events across the country, and wrapping up with a giant concert featuring performances by Sarah McLachlan, Tom Cochrane, Coup de Pirate, Randy Bachman, and more, including fireworks lighting up the night sky over the capital. Celebrate your Canada, July 1st on CBC and stream free on CBC Gem.
Remember that video last year of a Boeing 737 MAX plane and then the door panel blew out mid-flight? It was hard to forget once you saw that video, of course. Well, today on Business News, coming up after 6:30, we are hearing more about what happened. So we're going to hear that from Crystalie Ramlakan, who's going to be joining us right after 6:30. Also today in her report, billionaire and Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is getting married to TV presenter Lauren Sanchez in Venice right now. And there's some stats about how much this is going to cost. You can only imagine, but not for long, because we'll tell you after your CBC Winnipeg News.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 6:30, it's 13 degrees, increasing clouds through the morning, slight chance of showers today, and a high of 24. A 23-year-old Winnipeg woman is recovering in hospital after being stabbed in her back, stomach, legs, and left eye. The attack happened Sunday, just before midnight, in Osborne Village. Ramandeep is her sister-in-law. CBC is only identifying her by her first name to protect the identity of the 23-year-old. She says she never thought anything like this could happen, but with most of their family back home in India, she is now trying to help.
I have to take care of her. I want to see her like same as she's before. She came here like for the better future and not for this, right? She doesn't deserve this.
Winnipeg police say the Major Crimes Unit is investigating. So far, no arrests have been made. A Winnipeg woman says she was humiliated when she was forced to remove her hijab on a Flin Airlines flight. Kazi Amin wears the religious garment used by some Muslim women. CBC's Mike Arsenault has the story.
This is humiliated for me.
Kazi Amin had to take off her hijab on a flight back from Bangladesh. She cleared customs and was at the Flin Airlines counter in Toronto. But Flin asked her to remove her headscarf before she could board.
I don't know what else I could do. I removed my hijab. In public, we are not allowed to remove hijab in public. We can remove hijab only in front of our family.
Amin's passport photo was taken before she wore a hijab, and Flin said she looked different in person. Amin's daughter, Afsara Raida, says that isn't a reasonable excuse.
I'm blonde right now. I can go back to being dark-haired, right? So is she going to go make me bleach my hair right then and there before I board the aircraft? Doesn't make sense.
Transport Canada says passengers don't have to remove religious head coverings unless it causes an alarm during security screening, and a private space should be offered. Amin says she wasn't given that option. Flin Airlines is investigating and have apologized. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Well, about 5,000 people who live in Flin Flon are getting set to return home this morning. They are getting the green light. It was nearly a month ago when wildfires forced a fast evacuation of that northern city, and many now are anxious on the return. Cameron McIntosh reports.
I thought I'm just going to get something with flames on it to represent kind of the beast that drove us out of there.
A flaming monster is tattooed on Kelly Sherman's forearm. 29 days ago, a wildfire forced he and his family to evacuate from their home in Flin Flon. Today, they're able to go home. Most of Manitoba's 21,000 fire evacuees have either returned to their homes or soon will be. 7 wildfires remain out of control, but no longer threaten communities.
We lifted the province-wide wildfire state of emergency.
Earlier this week, Premier Wab Kinew said the province no longer needs emergency powers to manage the fires, but returning evacuees will still feel their presence. Kristen Hayward is with the Manitoba Wildfire Service.
People can still expect to see smoke and active flames at times.
The threat of new fires remains high, with the forecast calling for a hot and dry summer ahead. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Smoke from northern wildfires is still impacting air quality in parts of the province. Environment Canada has issued an air quality warning for Lynn Lake. It advises people with medical conditions, the elderly or very young, to take precautions. U.S. President Donald Trump is rejecting reports suggesting the U.S. bombing of nuclear sites in Iran over the weekend didn't exactly destroy the country's nuclear program.
We hear it was obliteration. It was a virtual obliteration. When you take a look at the ground above, don't forget the flame is all underground. But everything above, if you look at the before and the after picture, everything above is burned black. I believe it was total obliteration. I believe they didn't have a chance to get anything out because we acted fast.
At the NATO summit, Trump commenting on documents leaked to the U.S. media claiming the damage from the U.S. strikes did nothing more than set back Iran's nuclear program by just a matter of months. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 7. A Winnipegger who was the role model for a generation of female hockey players will soon be immortalized in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Jennifer Botterill was just 18 when she won the Olympic silver with Team Canada. She went on to represent her country for another dozen years, winning 3 Olympic golds and 5 world championships. She hopes she has inspired younger athletes.
We're definitely seeing smaller fruit this year, just the way things have been a little bit.
You never know when that moment might be for a young athlete to help them to believe in themselves and what might be possible. And so if there is some small way that can provide a little source of inspiration for someone, that would be the ultimate honor.
Botterill will officially be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in November, along with 7 others, including Winnipeg-born NHL defenseman Duncan Keith. You can find the latest news updated throughout the day. All you have to do is head to cbc.ca/Manitoba.
And she knows a great deal about strawberries.
Yes, there you go, apparently.
I'm just teasing you. I hope I can do that.
Do you know?
I
decided I was running out of time and had to get rid of one story. You'll hear about strawberries coming up at 7:30.
Do you know what? I ate half the strawberries in Manitoba last week because there was also an interview here from another one of our colleagues. And they brought in, the guest came in and brought strawberries. And my desk is right by the green room outside the studio. And so it was sort of like, I probably embarrassed myself because it's just about my favorite fruit.
Well, you know what? Megan Ketchison walked in this morning with a little bag. She's visited St. Leon's and has some strawberries as well. So they're back in the newsroom.
Did you do picking with your kids and stuff? Strawberries, blueberries, and that? Was that one of the things you did or not so much?
Do you know, not so much. I did it when I was a kid with my parents, but we had raspberry bushes in our backyard. And my kids, when they would go back to the farm, would pick just in my parents' yard. They're all the raspberries. Yeah, for sure.
There's nothing like that, right?
That's the best. And you come back, you don't have anything in your pail. Your teeth are all purple, but there's no berries.
Exactly. Evidence is all that's left behind those stains. All right. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you.
So that story on the berries coming up later. Right now, let's get into the weather. If you are one of those people that loves to go out and berry pick, Abby's got some pretty good news for you, actually. Abby?
Yeah, it's going to be more like a kind of calm day. We'll see clouds roll in this morning, slightly cooler than yesterday. So if you're going to be picking berries, it's going to be more like a cool day for you to do that compared to yesterday with the humidity in play yesterday. From south to north, that's what we'll see. However, we do have this air quality warning in effect for Lynn Lake and surrounding areas. We're looking at smoke from nearby forest fire still bringing poor air quality to the region, and that will continue for most of the day. The heavy smoke will be impacting people no matter your age, so you may want to limit your time outdoors if you can, because the smoke will be felt in that region. Now, looking at conditions in Winnipeg and the Red River Valley region at this time, 13 degrees, partly cloudy outside. The skies will stay mostly cloudy through the morning, just a slight chance of passing showers at some point. The high will be around 24 today with light winds coming from the north, and it's just going to keep things pleasant. In the Pembina Valley region, Morden, Winkler, Altoona, Morris, we're seeing temperatures similar to Winnipeg, 13 degrees and partly cloudy across the region also. It's going to be mainly cloudy today. We do have that slim chance of showers also passing through this morning and into the afternoon period. We'll see highs around 25 degrees, winds coming from the southeast. In Brandon, 10 degrees, already sunny there. Today will bring mainly cloudy conditions in play once you get towards the afternoon period. We have a slight chance of showers and thunderstorms in the forecast this afternoon. Winds will come from the southeast, feeling windy at some point. High will be around 23. In the Parkland region, currently we're seeing 4 degrees in Dauphin. Some misty conditions being felt in areas around that region with cloud cover. Also, those fog patches will lift as you get into the morning, giving way to a mix of sun and clouds. Winds coming from the southeast as well. It's going to feel windy at some point. You will warm up to 23. Gimli, good morning. You are at 9 under partly cloudy skies. You also seeing some fog patches that should clear out, and the skies will remain mainly cloudy for most of the day. Small chance of showers in the forecast. High will be around 24. Now, with track conditions up north, the powerful influence surrounding areas. We're looking at sunny conditions already in that region. Currently 7 degrees. It's going to be a warm and pleasant day with sunshine and a high of 22. Thompson is at 2 degrees and mainly sunny at this point. A beautiful day ahead for folks there. You're warming up to 22 degrees as well. And then further north in Churchill, 13 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions. Once that clears, you see a mix of sun and clouds. Expect a high of 24. So it's more like a cloudy downside south at this point, and it's already lots of sunshine up north. Winnipeg right now, 13, warming up to 24.
All right, thanks a lot, Abby.
Thank you.
And now Sarah Sanders has popped in to talk about the commute.
Good morning. Not too much going on. It has been pretty quiet on the commuter line so far this morning. But if there is anything slowing you down out there, whether you are here in Winnipeg or out on the highways, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Let's get to business news now with Crystal Lee Ramlakan. Good morning to you.
Hey, good morning, Marcy.
So, of course, members of NATO are in the Netherlands. We've been talking about it already this morning on the show. They're expected to vote on whether to increase defense spending to 5% of GDP. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, that's right. So, members are debating increasing this benchmark from the current 2% of gross domestic product. So leaders, including Prime Minister Mark Carney, are expected to give the increase a rubber stamp. But how will Canada reach a higher spending target? Well, Carney says the country will do that in part by developing critical minerals and the infrastructure needed to get them to market, such as ports and railroads. So he says some of the spending on developing critical minerals will count towards that 5%. And the Prime Minister says this will benefit the Canadian economy and will be part of the country's NATO responsibilities. So critical minerals refer to metals and minerals such as lithium and nickel that are key elements for modern technology. They are in everything from laptops and cell phones to high-end defense systems. And Canada has some of the world's largest deposits of critical minerals. Now, Carney says 5% of Canada's GDP would amount to about $150 billion per year. And last year, NATO says Canada only spent $41 billion on defense. So that's a big difference there. And Canada's defense spending actually hasn't reached 5% of GDP since the 1950s.
Let's go to another story here. We're hearing more about why a door panel blew off that Boeing 737 MAX plane last year mid-flight. Video that few of us can forget. What can you tell us about it?
Yeah, well, investigators say systemic failures led to that door plug flying off. So the National Transportation Safety Board held a public meeting yesterday to share findings of its investigation. And it says Boeing and the Federal Aviation Administration are at fault. Investigators say Boeing's failure to provide adequate training, guidance, and oversight for its manufacturing operations are to blame. And it also found that ineffective regulatory enforcement also contributed to the accident. Now, we know that Boeing is still grappling with fallout from the incident, which led to more stringent federal oversight of manufacturing operations and leaderships at the company. And officials say an accident like this only happens when there are multiple system failures. So they say the door that left Boeing's factory, it left without those 4 bolts that it needed it to keep in place. And investigators say even one properly installed bolt would have held it in place. So the board has proposed 19 new safety recommendations to prevent similar accidents from happening in the future. So Boeing is planning a new design for the door. And once approved, the safety board says the FAA should issue a directive to retrofit aircraft with the updated version.
Now, I'm pretty sure, Crystal Lee, that back in the day when I got married in 2003, that I thought that the cost of the church basement hall and my dress and the flowers from my friend's uncle cost a lot. However, I'm going to be feeling pretty good in a moment because billionaire Amazon founder Jeff Bezos is getting married to TV presenter Lauren Sanchez in Venice. How much is this going to cost?
Well, this wedding is expected to cost at least $63 million. Bezos
Hang on, sorry, that was my jaw hitting the desk.
I know. It's a lot of money. My goodness. And though Bezos is supposed to make a large donation, about €1 million, to an academic consortium that studies Venice's lagoon ecosystem. We know it's a very, sensitive city on water there. Scores of VIPs from film, finance, and show business have been invited for these 3 days of celebrations. The first private jets started to arrive yesterday, and around 90 are going to land in that area over the next few days. The organizers have also booked at least 30 water taxis. 5 of the city's most luxurious hotels have been booked out to host about 250 guests. But it seems money can't buy you everything. Protesters are claiming an enormous victory after the tech billionaire and his wedding guests were pretty much forced from the city center. The main celebration has been moved to another location. And that's because, protesters say, well, one of the richest people in the world is monopolizing the city's finite resources, which have already been hindered by over-tourism. Residents say they have been driven out and driven away by this, the influx of hotels and short-term rentals and tourism. And some also have climate change concerns, which probably won't be helped by wealthy wedding guests arriving in yachts and private jets.
What's going on in the markets?
In Europe, markets are lower. Germany is down. The UK is down. France is down. In Asia, markets are higher. Japan is up. Shanghai is up. Hong Kong is up. Oil is up 61 cents to $64.98 US per barrel. Gold is up 7.86 to $3,331.53 US per ounce. And the dollar is down 0.03 of a cent to 72.8 cents US.
All right. Take care. Talk to you tomorrow. Actually, I'm off tomorrow, but I'll talk to you on Friday. Margot Watt will be sitting in.
Okay, I'm off Friday too, so we'll talk to you in July.
Yeah, happy Canada Day. Talk to you next month.
All right, thanks, Marcy.
That is Crystal Lee Ramlichan joining us with business news. Now, I am off the show tomorrow, but not off work. We're preparing for a special show on Friday. So Portage and Main Information Radio Live, as we get ready for that intersection to open, we've planned a pretty great show for you. So we hope that you can join us. Sarah Sanders and Chloe Friesen and myself will be down there at Portage and Main, right outside the Manitoba Métis Federation building, which is, of course, the old Bank of Montreal there. So you can join us on that corner of Portage and Main, live for InfoRad Friday morning. Well, if you're looking for things to do, speaking of Canada Day, the weekend coming up, long weekend for many people, even though the holiday's Tuesday, a lot of people took Monday off too. Maybe you want to head out to Onanol, Manitoba. And why not? It's a beautiful little community, right? Just outside Clear Lake there. And Poor Michael's Emporium is a special spot where they've got all kinds of things in that store, but they've also got sort of this beautiful little garden and stage in the back with the flowers overrunning. And on Saturday, Burnstick's going to be playing Poor Michael's Emporium in Onanol, so you can check them out there. They are, of course, you've heard them on the show before, a husband and wife duo from here in our province. They lean heavily into the harmonies and the vocals. They've often used a lap slide guitar in their work. And they are, as mentioned, on tour for festivals all summer long. Here's a cut from their 2024 record called Made of Sin. This is Burnstick and Ebb and Flow.
I felt the wind so bold, its bite sharper than the winter's cold. I've heard the frail breeze blow, singing to the hills in the ebb and flow. I've held the sword of shame, hurt the ones I love with words of blame. I've bit my tongue in fear to fall. How could I have come to be so small? I knew nothing. I knew nothing. shook still. A river flowed within with so much will. I knew something. I knew something. Yeah.
Burnstick on CBC, their tune called Ebb and Flow. As I mentioned, maybe you can catch them June 28th this weekend in Onano, Manitoba at Port Michael's. If you missed that show later in the summer coming up, they are playing in August. On the 14th, they'll be on stage at the Lyric Theatre here in Winnipeg at Assiniboine Park. Well, we have nice weather today, very summery, a high of 24 with humidex. It's going to feel like 26. But as we get into the depth of summer and the hotter days, we always like to remind you about heat stroke, as heat-related deaths are actually on the rise in this country. Today, filling in for Dr. Bardwaj, Dr. Samir Gupta is here to explain.
Hi, Marcy. How are you?
I'm well. So let's start with the basics here. How exactly does the heat harm the human body?
Yeah, that's a great question. And so, if you think about the human body, our core temperature is 37 degrees, and we are designed to function at that, which means that we have all these mechanisms to dissipate external heat when we're exposed to it. Now, the problem is that some of these mechanisms in themselves can end up causing us harm, particularly in people with chronic diseases. And even outside of that, in healthy people, ultimately, these mechanisms can get overwhelmed by external heat and they can fail. And so the first mechanism we have is vasodilatation. And that simply means dilatation of the blood vessels in the skin. And when that happens, we're able to radiate heat outward in order to cool down the core body temperature. And that's why you see people get flushed in the heat. After that, we have sweating. And sweating is very powerful because as that water evaporates from the skin, it takes heat with it. The problem is that when you have vasodilatation, because those blood vessels are dilated, your blood pressure will drop. Similarly, when you sweat, you're losing that water, your water content goes down, your blood volume goes down, and that also reduces your blood pressure. So to compensate for those things, your heart has to work harder. And that's why people with heart disease, for example, can get into trouble in the heat. And even if those mechanisms are working perfectly well, and if you're healthy, there comes a point where the body just can't accommodate that external heat. And then the internal body temperature starts to rise, and that's where you have a risk of heat stroke.
Now, every summer we have to revisit this because people throw around heat stroke, and I'm not sure that everybody actually knows what it is. So what are the symptoms?
Yeah, so heat stroke, the medical term is hyperthermia, and that's when the core body temperature rises above 40 degrees. And that's an extreme, so that would be, life-threatening. But before you get to heat stroke, on the way to heat stroke is heat exhaustion. And the symptoms of heat exhaustion really mostly are the symptoms of dehydration from sweating. So you get lightheaded, you get fatigued, you have that exhaustion feeling, hence the name. You get nausea or vomiting as well. And because you're losing a lot of electrolytes in the sweat, you can actually get muscle cramps. Then as you get higher, as you hit that 40 degrees, that's when the nervous system starts getting affected. So people will get confused. They will get agitated. Some people will have seizures at that temperature. The metabolic rate goes up. So the heart rate will go up, the breathing rate will go up. And as you get further, as you get to the 42 degree mark, the enzymes in the body will stop working. And that's when you sort of get into the state of inflammation. You get what are called heat shock proteins released in the body, and the blood pressure then starts to drop. And ultimately, that's when the organs start to shut down, and that's how people can die from heat exposure.
How does humidity play into the equation?
Yeah, so humidity is important, and we have this term called humidex, which is a Canadian invention, and people are very familiar with wind chill. So, in Winnipeg, what's the wind chill factor? Well, that's how you perceive the outside temperature to be as a function of how much wind there is. So the humidex is similar. It's what you will perceive the outside heat to be as a function of how much humidity is in the air. And the idea there is that sweating is the most effective way we have to dissipate heat, but sweating is less and less effective as the humidity goes up. So the humidex is telling us how we are going to experience that heat as a function of our sweating mechanism being less effective with humidity. So once that humidity is 60% or higher, that sweating is less effective. And if you hit 75%, your sweating is basically ineffective.
Remind us what groups are particularly susceptible to the effects of heat.
Yeah, so the groups we worry about, it's the usual suspects. We have talked about it with COVID. We've talked about it with other infectious diseases. It's the young, it's the kids, it's the elderly, people with chronic diseases, which we touched on, and pregnant women. And in fact, there are studies showing that after a few days of exposure in a heat wave, pregnant women have a higher chance of going into preterm or early labor. And then when you think about chronic diseases, particularly heart disease, we talked about the heart having to work harder in the heat. So people who have heart disease are at higher risk. We actually see more angina in our emergency rooms during heat waves. We see more heart attacks. We see more strokes. And beyond heart disease, people with diabetes get admitted more often in heat waves. People with kidney disease, even people with mental health disorders are admitted to hospital more often. And it's particularly the elderly, and it's particularly the kids. So in kids, they can't communicate their thirst. So we have to be very aware that they might become dehydrated. And the elderly actually have a reduced sensitivity to thirst. So they may themselves be unaware that they're becoming dehydrated.
With all of what you've already shared, what do you want to leave listeners with in terms of protecting themselves and their loved ones around the hot days?
Yeah, so number one is just awareness. You check that forecast, understand what the heat is, but also understand what the humidity is. And if you have air conditioning, you're in great shape. Stay indoors, but keep those drapes down. Keep that radiant heat out. Don't turn on the oven. Don't do things that'll heat up your home. Don't exercise because that increases your core body temperature. And if you're in trouble, know where the closest shopping mall is that's air conditioned. Know where the cooling center is. If you have to be outdoors, also stay in the shade. There's a big difference between the temperature in the sun versus the shade. And don't do things like sports because that increases your core body temperature. Don't wear too many layers because that traps the heat in. And I'd say the number one thing is don't get dehydrated. And that means keep drinking, but you'll know you're drinking enough if you're peeing. And look at your urine. Make sure your urine is not getting darker because that's a sign that you are getting dehydrated. And if you have things like the muscle cramps or the weakness, the lethargy, if you start feeling exhausted for no reason, that nausea, that dizziness, any of those things, know that those are signs of heat exhaustion and you have a risk of heat stroke. And let's really be careful with the young, with the kids. Let's make sure we keep them hydrated. And don't forget that the elderly are the ones at higher risk of death. So if you look at the major heat events we've had in Canada, more than 90% of deaths have occurred indoors. More than half have occurred in people over the age of 70. And most of those people actually lived alone. So if you have somebody in your life who fits that description, make sure you look in on them.
All right, Dr. Gupta, thank you.
My pleasure, Marcy.
Filling in for Dr. Raj Bhardwaj on our medical column, that is Dr. Samir Gupta. And remember that the city does have cooling centers, and they also offer city leisure centers and libraries during regular operating hours. If you want a list of those, they have a list of different ways that they help you with on these hot days. And you can go to the city's website, which is simply winnipeg.ca. All right, let's go to Heather Wells now with headlines.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg woman is threatening legal action after Flair Airlines forced her to remove her hijab before boarding. Kazi Amin's passport photo was taken before she wore the head covering, and Flair says she looked like a different person. Amin had already cleared customs and security when she was asked to remove the hijab. She says she was humiliated. We're going to hear more from her. And the mayor of Flin Flon expects the return of 5,000 people to that northern city today will be more orderly than the hasty exit a month ago when they were all forced out because of wildfire. George Fontaine says the ones to get back first will find the city largely as they left it, just empty. We'll hear more in our next local news coming up at 7:30.
Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, Josh Crabb from CBC is on the road to Flin Flon, literally. We're going to check with him as he's traveling up there. The official reopening of the city is 9 o'clock, so we'll have a report from him. Also, we will have that woman and her daughter in studio to tell us more about what Heather just mentioned, the request to remove the hijab at the airport. Stay tuned. More on that in Toronto, to be clear here, but a Winnipeg woman. Also, we're going to talk more about the changes that we're now we're counting down the days now. The changes coming to transit on Sunday, huge changes to our system. We will talk to a local seniors advocate to find out how they've been preparing. Different groups around town have been gathering to to prepare themselves for these big changes. All right, let's get into the weather briefly before World Report. Partly cloudy, 13 degrees now. 30% chance of showers this morning and early this afternoon, so bring an umbrella, maybe an extra jacket, just in case. A high of 24 degrees, and we do have air quality warnings because of the smoke up in Lynn Lake. Stay with us on Information Radio.
Today on The Current.
For example, one of the things we need in Canada is just straight munitions, a very simple thing.
I'm Susan Ormiston. The world is facing a lot of security challenges right now, and from recruitment to equipment, Canada's military has many issues of its own. Chief of Defence Staff, General Jenny Carignan, is here to talk about it all, coming up on The Current.
The Current, this morning at 8:37, 9:07 in Newfoundland, and on the CBC Listen app.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. It is a plan that will dramatically increase defense spending over the next decade. And today, NATO leaders, including Prime Minister Mark Carney, are expected to give it a rubber stamp. The allies are agreeing to spend 5% of GDP on defense to appease U.S. President Donald Trump. But as Murray Brewster explains, they are expecting something in return.
You know, when I went to NATO, they were broke.
In many respects, U.S. President Donald Trump is today getting the NATO summit he's always wanted. Allies pledging to spend billions and billions more on defense, 5% of their GDP. Europe and Canada saying all of the right things about taking responsibility for their own security. And fawning text from NATO's Secretary General. The one thing, however, other allied leaders are expecting in return, a full-throated commitment to NATO's self-defense clause, Article 5. In the back of Air Force One, ahead of the summit, they weren't getting it.
Numerous definitions of Article 5, you know that, right? But I'm committed to being their friends. You know, I've become friends with many of those leaders.
Actually, Article 5 is pretty clear. An attack on one is an attack on all NATO members. However, each nation gets to choose how they respond and what they contribute.
Good morning. I'm very excited about today.
NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte waved away concerns over Trump's equivocating.
Look what the United States is doing, what Donald Trump is doing. They are spending almost $1 trillion on defense. They are by far the biggest contributor to NATO.
For Canada's part, Prime Minister Mark Carney revealed yesterday on CNN that meeting the new defense spending goal of 5% of GDP would cost the federal treasury $150 billion a year. Murray Brewster, CBC News, The Hague.
The Trump administration is refuting reports suggesting the U.S. bombing of Iran failed in its objective. The weekend attack targeted 3 nuclear facilities. Intelligence assessments leaked to U.S. media suggest the bombing was only a temporary setback for Tehran's nuclear program. U.S. President Donald Trump says it destroyed Iran's nuclear capability. Sitting alongside Trump this morning at the NATO summit in The Hague, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth backed up his boss's claims.
We're doing a leak investigation with the FBI right now because this information is for internal purposes, battle damage assessments, and CNN and others are trying to spin it to make the president look bad when this was an overwhelming success.
Trump's special envoy to the Middle East calls the leak treasonous. Steve Witkoff says whoever is responsible for it should be held accountable. The shaky ceasefire between Iran and Israel is holding. There are no reports of repeat violations like the ones that angered Donald Trump yesterday, but it is not so peaceful in Israel's other war, in Gaza. CBC correspondent Chris Brown has more from Jerusalem.
Israel lifted its restrictions on public gatherings, restarted flights at Ben Gurion Airport, and reopened schools. There have been no obvious breaches of the ceasefire from either Iran or Israel after a wobbly beginning. But Israel remains at war in Gaza against Hamas, where it has suffered some of its heaviest combat losses in months. The IDF says 7 soldiers were killed when their armored personnel carrier was attacked, bringing the total number of soldiers dead since Israel broke a ceasefire in late March to 30. Gaza health authorities say more than 56,000 people have been killed by Israeli attacks over the past 20 months, with hundreds of thousands of people suffering from malnourishment. Qatar has said it hopes to use this ceasefire with Iran to restart truce talks with Hamas. Outside Han Yunis, a CBC freelance videographer spoke to Bakr Awada, who said the world has stopped paying attention to Gaza. The UN Human Rights Agency says over 410 people have been killed by gunshots or shells fired by Israel's military in the last few weeks as they tried to reach one of only a handful of food distribution sites in Gaza. Chris Brown, CBC News, Jerusalem.
Protesters in Kenya are taking to the streets, marking 1 year since anti-government demonstrators stormed the parliament. They forced President William Ruto to withdraw a planned tax hike.
We have a right to demonstrate. We have a right. They want to kill us. You see what they did to us?
Today, police have been trying to disperse the crowds with tear gas, and there's a heavy security presence at the rally. Protesters are still mourning the more than 60 people who were killed during last year's demonstrations, and they blame security forces for dozens of unexplained abductions. Members of Alberta's sovereignty movement say they're not deterred by the results of recent by-elections, but experts say the movement has a long way to go before it gains mainstream support. Our Aaron Collins has been taking a closer look.
Our movement is not going away. We're just getting started.
Cam Davies spinning Monday's by-election loss. The leader of the Alberta Republican Party finished third in the riding of Olds, Didsbury, Three Hills.
We need political action and backbone, and that's what the Republican Party of Alberta is going to continue fighting for all across Alberta.
Fewer than 20% of voters cast a ballot for Davies' Independence Party, a disappointing result. This riding elected Alberta's only separatist MLA nearly 50 years ago.
It's time that Western Canadians receive that first-class citizenship.
Frustration with Ottawa remains strong in Alberta's conservative heartland, but support for independence here less so among voters like Perry Sundberg.
Albertans are a little bit frustrated, so there's an emotional attraction to the separation idea, but I think if it's well thought through, it's not very realistic.
Janet Brown is a pollster and political commentator in Calgary.
Most people are sort of looking for the existing party, the existing government structure, to come up with the right kind of solutions.
The poll showing by separatists a blow to the sovereignty movement in Alberta and a vote of confidence for the governing United Conservative Party and their handling of relations with Ottawa. Aaron Collins, CBC News, Didsbury, Alberta.
A question about sexual orientation is appearing for the first time in next year's census. Statistics Canada has asked Canadians about their sexual orientation in past surveys. Now it's adding the question to its long-form census questionnaire. It says doing so will help it fill a gap in its data about how Canadians identify themselves. Questions about homelessness and residents' physical and emotional health are also being included for the first time. India is celebrating its return to space.
3, 2, 1, ignition, and lift.
An Indian astronaut is among the Axiom 4 crew that blasted off early this morning from Florida. They are headed to the International Space Station. The private mission is a joint venture of India's space agency and NASA. It marks the first time in decades an Indian astronaut has gone into space. CBC South Asia correspondent Salima Shivji has more.
Okay, all through, 1, 2, 3, and Peggy is very Peggy.
It's been months of strenuous preparation and training for the crew of Axiom 4. Tests filled with nervous anticipation for pilot Shubhanshu Shukla, the first Indian national to go to space in 41 years.
It's a monumental event for me as an individual and our country as a whole.
He knows he's carrying the space exploration dreams of many Indians.
I understand that it's a huge responsibility for me to inspire an entire young generation through my mission.
The Axiom 4 mission is run by a private company, but two national space agencies, America's NASA and India's ISRO, are also involved. An ideal situation for a country like India, which is aiming to become a bigger player in space exploration and needs private investment to get there. One major advantage India has going for it, a reputation of being frugal, says Shomak Ray Chowdhury, astrophysicist at Delhi's Ashoka University.
Chandrayaan-3, which is India's last moon mission, the entire cost of the mission was less than half of the cost of a single airplane of the Boeing or Airbus variety.
India is planning a crewed space mission soon and wants to send an astronaut to walk on the moon by 2040. Big ambitions. Inspiring young minds like 9-year-old Reetha Meja as she launches a toy rocket at school.
I really wanted to actually go in the future and see what's going to happen.
And how far India can go to achieve its space dreams. Salima Shivji, CBC News, Mumbai.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. If you like the World Report podcast, please follow us and tell a friend. It helps spread the word. I'm Marcia Young.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa. This is Information Radio live in downtown Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM, on the app and on YouTube. A hot spot in the province is Gimli at 15. Swan River, you're the cold spot at 4 degrees. Winnipeg's right up, right around 14 right now. So we've actually shot up quite a bit as well. Thanks for being with us. This hour on the program, we're going to be talking about the fact that it's going to be a nice day to drive. And a lot of people from Flin Flon are going to be making that drive. Well, all of them. That city of 5,000 people in northern Manitoba was evacuated due to wildfires. And today at 9 o'clock, it will reopen. It's been 28 days. The order lifts this morning. And so we will connect with CBC reporter Josh Crabb. He's on the highway with returning evacuees, and so we'll check in with him this hour about the story of the return. Also this hour, the big changes coming to transit on Sunday. Today we'll look at this through a seniors advocate perspective, what those conversations look like in the city. And we have quite a story at 10 to 8 to tell you about. As you may have heard in the news, a Winnipeg woman is speaking out after an airline forced her to take off her hijab in public. Her and her daughter will be in studio to talk more about what happened and what they hope comes from their story. So stay tuned. That's all still ahead. Other stories developing now with Heather Wells in our news center. Good morning.
Good morning. A 23-year-old woman fears for her safety after being attacked in Osborne Village. CBC is only using her first name. Tanpreet was walking home after work late Sunday night from a bus stop on Osborne. She says 2 people came from behind, knocked her to the ground, stabbed her multiple times. She's been left with many injuries and now wants to go back to India. We're going to hear her story coming up. And the mayor of Flin Flon expects a hasty exodus a month ago will transform into an orderly return today. 5,000 people, as Marcy mentioned, are heading home today after wildfire forced them to flee, unsure what they will return to. We're going to hear from George Fontaine, Flin Flon's mayor, coming up in our next local news at 7:30.
All right. Thanks very much, Heather.
You're welcome.
Well, just a reminder today to check 511 if you are heading on the highways in the commute this morning. Normally, we'd have the commute news after weather, but I'm just going to do it here because we're talking already about evacuees. Being on the highway is going to be really busy. You also just want to check just in case some highways are still closed, because remember, even though the state of emergency has been lifted, even though Flin Flon's heading back, there are still challenges with smoke, especially air quality in Lynn Lake, for example, this morning. And you're going to find some, perhaps some challenges still up with closures. So check that first, 511, before you go anywhere. And just want to mention the city of Winnipeg, we sure have had a great week. It's been, I think, 3 days where we haven't had anything major that's been problematic out there on the traffic situation, whether you're active commuting or you are in a car. So if you do have something to report, and this morning it is going to affect other people's drives, we would like to pass it along on our commuter line. You can call Sierra, and that number is 788-3093. Here's Abby now with our forecast.
And to add to that, you may be encountering fog in some parts of the highways as well. Look at the Brandon and Dauphin region. You might be seeing fog in that corner all the way towards Melita, you'll be seeing foggy conditions, but that should clear as you get into the morning. We're starting the morning with more like cloud cover and a slight chance of, cooler conditions this morning, stretching from the southern regions and tracking it all the way up north. We still have that air quality warning in place for Lynn Lake and nearby areas due to the smoke from forest fires. Air quality is expected to stay poor through the day, and during this heavy smoke, you may be affected. So if you can, try to stay indoors. Winnipeg at this point, we are at 13. We're seeing 13 degrees in some areas, 14 at some areas. Partly cloudy skies through the morning. We're seeing the sun also peek through. It's going to stay mostly cloudy this morning. There's a slight chance of passing showers in the forecast, and it's going to stay mild and comfortable overall. We'll warm up to 24 across the southern regions, talking about the Red River Valley, the Parkland region, the Westman region. We're seeing morning temperatures between 11 and 15 degrees at this time. Today also looks mainly cloudy and a small chance of showers in most of the regions across the south. We'll see temperatures get to around 25 degrees, and further north, we're seeing 8 to 10 degrees at this point. High of 22 in the northern parts of the province. Right now, Winnipeg, we are at 13 degrees.
Time right now is 7:15, and up next on the show, let's get some more details on a story that you may have been hearing in the news, in fact, this morning. Kazi Amin was flying back to Winnipeg from a family vacation when she says she was asked to do what to her is unthinkable. Kazi is Muslim. She wears a hijab, but her passport photo was taken almost a decade ago, as we've been hearing in the news. So that was before she began wearing the religious garment. Muslim women who choose to wear the headscarf are not permitted to remove it in public. So when the Flair Airlines employee in Toronto at the Pearson Airport told her she would need to take off the hijab to verify her identity, she couldn't believe what she was hearing. Kazi and her daughter Afsara Rida joined me in studio this morning. They're both here live. Kazi, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you very much for being here as well, Afsara. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
I know that your mom wants to say, she told me just now, she'll speak a little about what happened, but she'd like your help through the conversation here. Yeah. But I do want to start with you. Kazi, what did it feel like for you when they were asking this?
I feel totally helpless. I don't know what to do, what else. They repeatedly say to remove my hijab if I want to get into the aircraft. So they repeatedly say that one. I feel so helpless, so humiliated. So I don't know what else I can do, what I could do. So it was so helpless, I feel.
And you'd already been through security, right?
Yeah, I went, after starting hijab, I flew several times. This is not the first time I'm moving. I flew several times. So nothing happened that time. This time I faced this thing.
You ultimately did have to take it off.
Yeah, I don't know what else I could do. I need to come home. I went with my husband for 2 weeks vacation in Bangladesh. So I was so tired and exhausted. I want to come home. I don't know what else I can do. I was terrified. I don't know if they put me in more trouble. I was terrified for that. So I take off hijab. I shouldn't do it. It was almost remove my clothes in front of public. It is not. It is humiliated.
And you did it. Were you right at the gate, or did you have any privacy for that?
No. They didn't ask me to go to some other place, or they didn't ask me to do it. My husband told them I cannot open my hijab in public. It is religious. My husband told them, but they didn't listen. They said, "Why don't you update?" My passport was valid, so why should I update that one, right?
So they didn't listen when you were saying this was religious. I can't take it off here. They just said update your photo.
They just repeatedly saying that I have to remove my hijab if I want to get into the aircraft.
What does it feel like hearing your mom talk about this and you imagining that moment of your mom in the airport and having to do this?
Oh, I was so angry. I was completely furious. So what had happened was, like my mom said, it happened at the gate. So they passed security. Security was fine. They've even flown overseas internationally, and we fly 2 to 3 times a year. And there's never ever been an issue. My mom's been wearing a hijab for 4 years. Even in the States, a country where people say that they're racist, they've never had any issues. But this happened right here at home. So they passed security. Everything was fine. But when they got to the gate and she presented her passport, the employee started yelling at my mom, saying that you, like, what is this? This doesn't look like you, and you have to take off your hijab. And if she repeatedly said that, that means that she just was not even aware of her surroundings and the rules that they have at the airport for people that wear religious garments. And after my mom took it off, that's when she said, you can go. And she could, like, my mom barely put on her hijab back. She just kind of lightly put it on. It wasn't put on properly. And as they were walking to the ramp to get into the aircraft, she yelled out again and said, if you have a problem, you can take it to Transport Canada. We're just following Transport Canada rules. And my dad told her that that's not Transport Canada rules. So as soon as he got into the aircraft, they sat down. My dad called me and said, this is what happened. I was like, are you serious? Did you take a picture or video? And my dad's like, no, I did not. But as soon as he hung up the phone with me, that's when she came back onto the air. That's when the employee came onto the aircraft to check people's boarding passes, because it was a partially empty flight. And people were just kind of sitting wherever. But no one was complaining anything about having their seats taken away by someone else. She just thought that she can come back on. But it played well for us because that's when my dad took the picture.
So your dad took the picture when this same employee came back on the aircraft? Mm-hmm. Okay, so you wanted a documentation of who had been involved in this.
Yeah.
So that was the photo when she came on to check seats and such.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So just to be clear, so your mom was explaining this, but I just want to get the facts clear. So she'd been through security, as you said. Mm-hmm. Was there ever an offer or discussion, either of you can answer this, but even though it was wrong for her to demand this, that your hijab came off, did they ever even offer it then when you said this is a religious, religious meeting, to go somewhere private at least?
No.
If they
they
don't offer anything.
We don't have a problem with if they were to go into security for check further for her identification and they took her to a private room, we would not be having this conversation today at all. I would not have raised awareness online. But the issue here is that they did not take her to a private room, even though the airport already has these private rooms for checks. So
you've been wearing hijab for 4 years, is that right?
Yeah.
Have you ever had it off in public before?
No.
How are you dealing with this now? How stressful has this been for you?
It is so humiliated for me. I feel that I couldn't maintain the value of the hijab. It is so depressing for me. So I talked to my doctor. It is okay. So I'm taking time to healing the situation. And
I wonder what everyone around was doing at this time. Like, did anyone come forward to say, this seems wrong? Or
I don't think people realize what was happening.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're in an airport and you don't know.
You're in an airport and also people don't like to
business probably.
Yeah, and people don't really like to speak up in situations like this because airports, they have staff.
Of course.
Staff has authority, right? Because they even said if you want to get onto this aircraft, you have to take it off.
Now you also I know because we're carrying the story, of course, in the news this morning as well, so we've heard some details. Mm-hmm. You also say that you believe that the moment where as your mom said, the employee said, you don't look like this picture is something that you question. You were talking about your own hair color.
Yeah, because I'm blonde right now. Now, if I wanted to go back to being dark haired, right, do I have to go bleach my hair right away as soon as I get to the airport? My brother has a beard now, but when he took his picture in 2016, he was a teenager. He did not have a beard, and he didn't even have the facial construction that he has right now. So if their expectation is for us to look exactly like the picture, that's impossible. No one looks exactly like their pictures, even a year or two after it's taken.
You reached out to Fleur about this on behalf of your mom and for the family. What was their response?
They just sent an email saying that we're sorry, it does not align with our values, but we're going to be looking into it. But they have not said anything publicly. We've made it clear that we want a public apology. And you know what? They're watching my Instagram stories. They're watching my Facebook stories. I can see everything, but not a single word is coming out of them.
What are your biggest concerns about what happened to your mom? Because we've been talking obviously about policy, but then there's emotional toll here, and then there's, just as you said at the very beginning, you said this has never happened in the States and this happened here. So there's like layers of different concerns. What are your biggest concerns? What do you hope people really understand about this?
So the main thing right now is people should understand the value of the hijab, why it's worn. First of all, it's not a facial covering. It's a hair covering. And if by any chance someone needs to change their hairstyle and their identification changes, that doesn't make sense, okay? Also, Transport Canada has these rules in place that are very clear and concise, and that's exactly what we want airport staff to follow. But they're taking it on themselves to take the extra step and start harassing people that are trying to get on flights, which is absolutely wrong. So the training for ethics and Islamophobia needs to be there, and the comments about hijab covering your face, that needs to go. There's a difference between a hijab and a niqab. What has you reached out to Fleur directly? What have they said so far to you about the situation? Just sorry, but it does not align with our values. That's it. Nothing else.
What does justice look like for you?
I want them to know what is hijab is. I want that no one has to face this thing again. I want that every religious people has to be respected. Every religious people has to be respected. It is Canadian Charter law, right?
It is the Canadian Charter of Rights. Thank you both for being here. I know it was your first time being on radio, and we really appreciate you being here with such a sensitive story. Thank you very much.
Thank you
for having us.
Thank you for having us.
That in studio with me has been Winnipeggers Kazi Amin and her daughter Sarah Rida. More of their stories on our website at cbc.ca/Manitoba. And in the news this morning, as you've been hearing, Transport Canada does say passengers do not have to remove religious head coverings unless it causes an alarm during security screening. Then a private space should be offered. So both of those things are at odds with what happened. Flair Airlines says they are investigating, and as you heard, has issued and has apologized, they say. It is 7:26 a.m. It's time for morning sports. And with that, we have Scott Reguer with us. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Marcy.
So we are starting, a busy morning here. I'm flipping around all my scripts. You're starting with soccer. You could start with a lot of things, but of course, the big win last night for Canada.
Yeah, they call it the beautiful game, but it was anything but last night, although I suppose beauty is in the eye of the beholder. A 2-0 victory over El Salvador. Marcy sees Canada through to the Gold Cup quarterfinals, which has, I suppose, an allure all itself. But the hurdles Jesse Marsh's men had to overcome in getting that win, they were not easy on the eye. The Salvadorans, ranked 51 places behind Canada by FIFA, hacked down their opponents at every turn. There was a nasty studs-up tackle on Jacob Schaffelberg. There was a clotheslining of Tajon Buchanan that sent him flying through the air at one point, and an elbow to the face of Alistair Johnson. To borrow from the late comedian Rodney Dangerfield, I went to a prize fight and a soccer game broke out. Here is Canada's coach, Marsh.
We knew that El Salvador was going to be very physical and make it hard on us. I think they respected our physicality, so that's the way they played. I'm happy with the concentration and discipline that our team showed and the fact that we got the win. And now I think it gives us an opportunity to just get through the next couple days physically and then mentally be really prepared for another similar type match against Guatemala.
Let's hope it's not too similar. There were 22 fouls in last night's first half alone, which is about how many you get in a full game when it's being played very physically. Two Salvadorans were red-carded, with Jonathan David and Tejon Buchanan scoring with the resulting two-man advantage. Next up, Guatemala on Sunday in Minneapolis in a quarterfinal match.
Hockey now was a busy day away from the ice.
It was, including this year's Hall of Fame class being announced, headlining things. A couple of Winnipeggers, Jennifer Botterill and Duncan Keith. Also being inducted, Joe Thornton, Zdeno Chara, and one of my favorites, Alex Mogilny. He got in his 17th year of eligibility. Way too long, if you ask me, for a member of the Quadruple Gold Club. Mogilny won a Stanley Cup, World and World Junior titles, as well as an Olympic title. Mogilny was also a trailblazer, Marcy. He defected, remember, from the Soviet Union while being pursued through Sweden by the KGB. It was quite a story. And he did all of that to realize his NHL dreams. Now he's in the Hall. And on the topic of trailblazers, Danielle Sauvageau. She's the first woman elected to the Hall in the Builders category. Sauvageau served as either a coach or general manager of 7 different Canadian Olympic teams, and she was busy yesterday because the PWHL draft was going on. She's the GM of the Montreal Victoire. One of the notable moves yesterday as part of the draft, a deal that sends Toronto Scepters goalie and Brandon native Kristen Campbell to the expansion franchise out in Vancouver. Lots going on.
All right, and Jennifer Botterill is here live in an hour from now, so we'll get to congratulate her on being inducted into the Hall, which is very cool.
Yeah, amazing. Look forward to that.
Totally. Thank you so much, Scott. Really appreciate it.
You betcha.
That's Scott Regehr with Morning Sports. Your CBC Winnipeg News is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 7:30, it's 14 degrees now. We're going to see increasing clouds through the morning, a slight chance of showers, and today's high, 24. 5,000 people are heading home to Flin Flon starting this morning, unsure what they'll find when they get back. Wildfire forced them to flee their homes 4 weeks ago. When he left at the end of May, Flin Flon's mayor, George Fontaine, told CBC he didn't know when or even if the city would still be standing. This morning, Fontaine is relieved.
It's turned out to be a very positive end result for the community of Flin Flon. And now our neighbors have suffered some catastrophic losses, and our hearts go out to them. But our own physical community is still there.
People are leaving from Winnipeg, Brandon, Portersville Prairie, Dauphin, Swan River, and the Pas, some driving on their own, others in buses. Fontaine says when people get back to Flin Flon, specialists will be there to help with any anxiety or mental health concerns. And as Flin Flon is still dry and fire continues to burn, he says people will need to be cautious. Now, smoke from those northern wildfires continues to impact air quality in that area of northern Manitoba. Environment Canada this morning issuing an air quality warning for Lynn Lake. It advises people with medical conditions, the elderly or very young, to take precautions. A 23-year-old woman now fears for her safety after being attacked in Osborne Village. CBC is only using her first name. Tanpreet was walking home after work late Sunday night from a bus stop on Osborne. She says 2 people came from behind, knocked her to the ground, and stabbed her multiple times. She has injuries to her back, stomach, legs, and left eye. She says the attackers took her phone, credit card, and IDs.
I felt unconscious and I fell on the ground, and when paramedic and the police came, there were just lights around me. I was just thinking I will die. I can't live anymore.
Tanpreet says she no longer feels safe in Winnipeg and wants to go home to India. Winnipeg police say the Major Crimes Unit is investigating. So far, no arrests have been made. A Winnipeg woman's return flight from a family visit in Bangladesh was shocking. Qazi Amin wears a hijab, a religious garment used by some Muslim women, and she was forced to remove it by a Flair Airlines employee. CBC's Mike Arsenault has the story.
This is humiliated for me.
Qazi Amin had to take off her hijab on a flight back from Bangladesh. She cleared customs and was at the Flair Airlines counter in Toronto. But Flair asked her to remove her headscarf before she could board.
I don't know what else I could do. I removed my hijab. In public, we are not allowed to remove hijab in public. We can remove hijab only in front of our family.
Amin's passport photo was taken before she wore a hijab, and Flair said she looked different in person. Amin's daughter, Afsara Raida, says that isn't a reasonable excuse.
I'm blonde right now. I can go back to being dark-haired, right? So is she going to go make me bleach my hair right then and there before I board the aircraft? Doesn't make sense.
Transport Canada says passengers don't have to remove religious head coverings unless it causes an alarm during security screening, and a private space should be offered. Amin says she wasn't given that option. Flair Airlines is investigating and have apologized. Mike Arsenault, CBC News, Winnipeg.
U.S. President Donald Trump is rejecting reports that claim the U.S. bombing of nuclear sites in Iran didn't actually destroy the country's nuclear program.
We hear it was obliteration. It was a virtual obliteration. When you take a look at the ground above, don't forget the flame is all underground. But everything above, if you look at the before and the after picture, everything above is burned black. I believe it was total obliteration. I believe they didn't have a chance to get anything out because we acted fast.
Trump commenting at the NATO summit in The Hague on documents leaked to U.S. media. They say the weekend strikes did nothing more than set back Iran's nuclear program by just a few months. You can hear the latest national and international news coming up on World Report at 8. A Winnipegger who was a role model for a generation of female hockey players will soon be immortalized in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Jennifer Botterill was only 18 when she won Olympic silver with Team Canada. She went on to represent her country for another dozen years, winning 3 Olympic golds and 5 world championships. She hopes she has inspired young athletes.
You never know when that moment might be for a young athlete to help them to believe in themselves and what might be possible. And so if there is some small way that can provide a little source of inspiration for someone, that would be the ultimate honor.
Botterill will officially be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame in November, along with 7 others, including Winnipeg-born NHL defenseman Duncan Keith. And we end with some mouth-watering news for strawberry lovers. Manitoba-grown berries are making an early return to store shelves. Jane Giesbrecht owns Lost Creek Acres U-Pick Farm, northeast of McGregor. She hopes to open by Monday, a little earlier than usual. She says that hot weather in May helped the plants bloom. All that's needed now is a little moisture to finish off the fruits.
We're definitely seeing smaller fruit this year. Just the way things have been a little bit drier, I think, has contributed a lot to that. But yeah, still lots of, a ton of flowers, a ton of fruit out there. So yeah, now we're just waiting for it to ripen.
In Winnipeg, St. Leon Garden Center says local berries arrived early this year and they hit the shelves over the weekend. You can find more news. Just hit our website, cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thanks, Heather.
You're welcome.
Jennifer Botterill, by the way, live here after 8. That'll be fun. It is 7:36 a.m. Abby's here now with our regional forecast.
Good morning once again. Air quality warning in effect for Lynn Lake and surrounding areas due to the smoke from nearby forest fires. Now, poor air quality is expected to roll through the day. Now, during this heavy smoke, everyone's health can be affected, no matter your age or health condition. So I'd advise you to limit your outdoor time if you can. Conditions in Winnipeg at this time, 14 degrees. Some sun peeking through the partly cloudy skies we're seeing. Today, we will see mostly cloudy conditions, just a small chance of showers into the afternoon period. Temperatures will warm to a high of 24 with light winds coming from the north. So comfortable. It's going to be more like a comfortable day ahead. In the Pender Valley region, we're seeing similar conditions to Winnipeg Winnipeg, 14 degrees also at this time. There's a slight chance of showers rolling through the region, warming up to 25. Brandon is at 11 at this point. Also clouds rolling in. Small chance of showers. That will come with a risk of thunderstorms this afternoon. Winds will be from the southeast and it gets windy at some point, warming up to 23. In the Parkland region, we're seeing a Dauphin at 6 degrees at this point. Mainly sunny conditions. We saw some fog patches in that part of the province earlier, but that's already lifting. The day will turn partly cloudy as you get into the afternoon. Winds will come from the southeast, making it windy at some point, high around 23. Gimli's at 11 with partly cloudy conditions also. Expect this mainly cloudy skies to stick around for most of the day. Slim chance of showers in the forecast. Winds will be mild from the west. High will be around 24. Tracking conditions in the northern part of the province at this point from the Flin Flon and surrounding areas. We're seeing sunny conditions already, 10 degrees right now. A warm and sunny day ahead, high of 22. Thompson, similar, sunny, 8 degrees at this time. Beautiful day ahead with sunshine in the forecast, high of 22. While we have mostly cloudy skies in Churchill with a current temperature of 13 degrees. It's also going to turn sunny at some point. Then we'll see a transition to a mix of sun and clouds by the afternoon period, warming close to 24. So down south, it's kind of warmer than yesterday, mild to warm temperatures, breezy at times, while we have lots of sunshine in the north this morning.
All right, thanks, Abby.
Thank you.
Quiet out there on the morning commute. Sarah Sanders is just popping in to, I think, just remind us about the phone number, honestly. Have you had any calls this morning?
I have had no calls, and it seems that it has been very quiet on the roads this morning, on the highways and here in Winnipeg. But if there is something that is slowing you down that we don't know about, you can give me a call on the CBC commuter line, 204-788-3093.
All right, thanks, Sarah.
Thank you.
Well, it won't be quiet on the highway going up to Flin Flon. Still ahead in this half hour of the show, we're going to check in with CBC Manitoba's Josh Crabb. He is, in the lineup of vehicles, I suspect, that are heading back up to that northern city after they were evacuated due to wildfires 28 days ago. So today is the return, as you've heard in the news, officially opens at 9 o'clock, and we'll check in with Josh live this half hour. Well, this weekend is a big one for changes in Winnipeg's transit system. The new route launches on June 29th. It means that many of the primary transit lines are going to be different. So where you catch your bus could also be different. New stops have been added and some existing stops will be discontinued. It's a lot of new information for transit users to wrap their heads around. Now, some Winnipeg seniors have some concerns about how they're going to adjust to the change, and they've been talking about it. So we thought we'd lean into that conversation. Connie Newman is with us, Executive Director of the Manitoba Association of Seniors. Good morning.
Good morning.
So tell me a little bit about, what you've been hearing from seniors about the new transit system, and maybe some people are excited, maybe they have concerns. What are people saying?
It's a combination of both. It's change, and nobody likes change, and everybody worries about change. And for many of us, will we be able to use the bus to go where we need to go? I've heard both. In fact, yesterday I was with a group of older adults, and they asked me what I thought. And my message to them was, this is like when calculators were introduced in the school system. Everybody was in an uproar. And here today, it's part of the normal. So we need to embrace this change, and we need to do our best to learn about it, because we don't stop learning because we get old. We continue to learn. My biggest fear in all of this, some older adults are not tech savvy. Because they're not tech savvy, what does that do for them? And for me today, we have senior resource coordinators in this city who will know how and who will help older adults use the bus. And we need to get on the bus, because as we get older, we no longer drive. And how are we going to get anywhere if we don't drive?
Winnipeg Transit says there will be transit trainers posted at some bus stops to help people navigate the new system, so people there actually in person. How valuable could that be?
If those reception type individuals help, I hope they know about the aging process, because some of us have difficulty hearing, some of us have difficulty with eyesight, and anybody that's going to help me needs to be aware of my conditions.
What additional supports could help seniors adjust to the new system? We had actually a conversation with the city manager yesterday in charge of some of these changes, and he was answering a lot of questions and saying, there's going to be a learning curve, and as you said, obviously change is always difficult for everybody, not just seniors, all of us. But he was suggesting that there were a lot of apps that people could go to, and you started by saying today, Connie, that's your fear, that people won't have that tech savviness. What else might you suggest that the city thinks about to reach more people, more seniors specifically?
To continue their training program, because I've been aware that they're offering training. They're going to active living centers, anywhere where older adults congregate. And if they continue those, we should be okay. We as individuals have to acknowledge the fact we need to continue to learn. We learned how to use the calculator. We're going to have to learn how to get on the bus. And for some of us, that hasn't been for the last 20, 30 years.
Now, on another story, Connie, I can't not ask you before you go this morning something else, which is, speaking of long history in our city, how you feel about Portage and Main reopening to pedestrians on Friday morning. We're going to be doing a live actually down there. What are you thinking about that?
Curious. I drove by there 2 nights ago, and I thought, oh my God, what a change. But I've been around so long. I was around when they put those dividers up. I mean, many, many cities have large intersections that are open. So it's going to be interesting. And drivers are going to have to pay attention as we learn how to cross Portage and Main.
Thank you very much for being with us this morning. Appreciate it.
All right. You take care.
You too. That's Connie
Bye-bye.
Newman. Bye-bye. She's the Executive Director of the Manitoba Association of Seniors. A lot of changes coming, Winnipeg. If you want to weigh in on either Portage and Main, which was just, of course, one question in an interview that was focusing on transit, those changes coming Sunday, you can weigh in on either. These are things that are fundamental to our lives, right? If you're walking or driving or getting around, even visually, Portage and Main will change sort of how the city looks. And, of course, transit really critical to your daily transportation if you use transit. Also, if you're a casual transit user, it may actually be even more important to lean into what's changing because you won't be sort of plugged in, day out. But you can call us. Let us know what you're thinking. 788-3205.
What's your Canada thing? What makes you proud? What makes your patriotic soul sing? Join us at the Forks on Canada Day and tell us. CBC is bringing a digital display where you can get a picture, play our Canada Day quiz, and shout your Canada thing loud and proud. Look for CBC, proud sponsor of Canada Day at the Forks. Visit cbc.ca/Manitoba/community for details.
Étoile et le mauvais œil. Je marchais sur l'eau, je dormais debout. Je suis 5 pieds 12, je sais rien du tout. Elle m'a dit ciao, comme un man au cœur. La tentation est la merde. I hope you holler back, girl. Cause I hope you holler back, girl. What you heard about me, but I ain't no PMP. Un lift camion de con tétano. I can't let this go, no, I can't let this go. Cause I hope you haul it back, girl. Cause I hope you haul it back, girl. Ooh, baby blue. Répare mon cœur avec la crazy glue. 3 fois par jour avec un arilou. Mais sans toi ça ne veut rien dire du tout. Ooh, baby blue. Répare mon cœur avec la crazy glue. 3 fois par jour avec un arilou. Mais sans toi ça ne veut rien dire du tout. Ooh, baby blue. Répare mon cœur avec la crazy glue. 3 fois par jour avec un arilou. Mais sans toi ça ne veut rien dire du tout.
Okay, we can't play you a track that is that cool on the radio and not tell you a little bit about it. So I know we hit you cold with that one. But if you want to check it out for yourself, that is Mike Clay, the name of the artist. The song's called Marilou. I love all the sampling in there, right? Little hollaback, nod to Gwen Stefani. And then, I don't know what you heard about me. I caught that in there too. So he was, Mike Clay, the artist, was in the back of a cab in Sao Paulo, Brazil. And it was like 3:30 in the morning with a girl named Mary Lou. And that's the name of the track. It's called Mary Lou. But basically the sound of the track is sort of what he was hearing as he was driving through the city that never sleeps. The cab driver was flipping through the radio stations and the mix of those sounds clicked. So obviously he was listening to those other tunes in the radio. But oh, I love that. What a great summer tune. We are feeling summertime this morning at 11 minutes to 8 o'clock because it's 14 degrees already and we're heading for a high of 24 in Winnipeg. With Humidex, it'll feel like 26 degrees. Brandon, very similar to us with a 30% chance of showers in the forecast. We have that in Winnipeg as well. Your high a little cooler, a high of 23 degrees today in Brandon. But as you've been hearing in the news, all eyes are looking north, especially if you are from Flin Flon, because Flin Flon residents this morning will finally be able to return home. It's been almost a month, 28 days, since 5,100 people were forced from their homes by that massive out-of-control wildfire that spanned the Manitoba-Saskatchewan border. So that is a city, as I mentioned, of 5,000 people. And Flin Flon, really, it was touch and go for a lot. Right? Because they were surrounded on all sides of the city at some of the most critical points in the past number of weeks. But today's the day that you can return home. The evacuation order officially lifting at 9 o'clock, as you've heard in the news. CBC's Josh Crabb is already on the road. He's on the highway between the Paw and Flin Flon somewhere this morning as people are starting to make their way back to the city. And he joins us actually via Zoom, so he's pulled over there. Hi, Josh.
Good morning.
How far did you get? Where are you?
You know, we're not too far out of the Paw, just for people maybe not familiar with the area between the Paw and Cranberry Portage near a place called Rocky Lake, just off the side of Highway 10. We pulled over to make some time to tell you a little bit about how the return home to Flin Flon is going.
So did you lose your place in line or is there not a line? And what was it like driving up there?
You know, it's busier than when I was up here about 4 weeks ago, and there was like very little traffic on Highway 10 north of the Paw, and you know there was smoke and you could barely see 100 meters in front of you. It was kind of a apocalyptic, ominous scene, but now the sun is shining and we are seeing a few campers, maybe about a handful of people who appear to be heading back north up Highway 10 towards Flin Flon. Maybe they were staying in their campers during the evacuation. So it is busy, but not quite that busy yet. I think as the day goes on, it might get busier. Basically what we're seeing now is people who maybe staged near the Paw last night or in the past few days to get a bit of a head start. And those people are starting to make their way north.
I'm jealous of where you are this morning. On Zoom, I can see behind you those big, beautiful Manitoba northern trees, and the sky looks blue. You got sunshine in there. You talked to some people who, as they were preparing to go back before you hit the road. Tell us a bit about Pauline Nabis.
Yeah, so we met up with Pauline at the Anderson Inn in the Paw, and she is one of the evacuees who plans to be heading back home today. She left the community of Flin Flon on May 28th when the city was evacuated, along with her two sons and her mother. They took the bus to the paw. They had to leave their dog behind because there was a bit of an issue, I guess, with one of the dogs not getting along with another one. Anyway, they were eventually reunited with the dog, but Pauline had mentioned that she'd left out a bunch of wet dog food and dry food for her dog because she wasn't sure how long she'd be separated from her dog. She hasn't been able to work during the evacuation because her workplace has been shut down in Flin Flon. And so she says the past 4 weeks have been really tough. She has yet to see payments from the Red Cross in terms of financial support, those per diems that people are supposed to be getting. And she's been living at a hotel, relying on meals provided by the Red Cross and relying on rides from other people from Flin Flon who are staying at the hotel. They've sort of made a little community there. Anyway, she talked a little bit about how going back, yes, it's exciting, but she also says that there's a bit of anxiety going back. Take a listen.
It's going to be much different to go back home now. I don't know about smoke damage. Obviously, I don't know about the food in the freezer. Some people say that their food is still good, so that's another big thing.
And going back, like, no money, not being able to go shopping, and the uncertainty of that. So it's pretty scary.
Who is he? Tell us a bit about him.
Kelly is another evacuee staying with his family at the Anderson Inn. We met him while he was walking his dog, Chester, and he's there with his wife and 2 children and their dog. And they were lucky, they say, to get a spot at the Anderson Inn so close to Flin Flon. Kelly is a retired mine worker. His wife works at a grocery store in Flin Flon, and he tells me that she was actually allowed to go back early, but only on her own with her dog. He and his children wouldn't have been allowed to go back to Flin Flon, so she declined, didn't feel comfortable going back up on her own. They will be making the journey today. They're on the road probably as we speak. Kelly wanted to get home as soon as possible. He said the past 4 weeks have been difficult, but they've been among the lucky ones. They said they've had a relatively enjoyable stay, as enjoyable as a stay like this can be in the paw. But he is looking forward to getting back home after 4 weeks, and he got ready to go yesterday. Here's how he was preparing.
We're stocked up. We've already got groceries, and we're ready to go. 9 o'clock when that opens, we're going to be one of the first ones in line. We want to get home. Right?
What are you expecting to be going home to? Are you preparing for a big cleaning job or smoke damage or anything?
No, I've talked to a few people that are back there. There's very little, right? And, stale house for 28 days, basically. There's been no windows open and no doors, so nobody's got smoke damage. There's very little food lost from what I'm hearing, so I think it'll be fine. Some cleaning. The biggest thing will be the devastation of the area driving back. I don't think people are prepared for what they're going to see or not see at this point. Right.
What are you most interested to see at this point, Josh, as you're going to Flin Flon yourself, and you described that drive up 4 weeks ago or so, or maybe 3 weeks ago when you were first there, how it was just so different, and now today it's calmer. But what are you going to be looking, and observing when you get to Flin Flon?
Yeah, I guess just to see how close the fire came to the community will be one of the things that we're watching out for as we drive up there. Well aware, though, this is a bittersweet day for the community. There were a lot of homes lost in neighboring areas, Denair Beach, and on the Saskatchewan side, just across the border from Flin Flon. There were many homes lost in a fire there that ripped through the village. And, a lot of people from Denair Beach work in Flin Flon. And so I think for people going back home, it is a bit of a bittersweet feeling that they've been describing. Yes, they're happy to get back to their homes, but they know that many of their neighbors have lost so much. And not only Denair Beach, but the cottages and some of the outlying areas outside of Flin Flon. Flin Flon was spared from the wildfire, but surrounding areas were hit hard. So that's something we'll be watching out for. And just generally, I'm interested to see how after 4 weeks, a city that was evacuated, how you get a city going again, and just to see it sort of come alive again will be something that I'm watching out for.
Absolutely. What a range of emotions you're going to be witness to today. We look forward to your reporting. Be safe, and thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Marcy.
That is CBC Manitoba's Josh Crabb. He's pulled over on the side of the highway just outside the Pas to speak with us this morning. He and videographer Jason Empson are making their way to Flin Flon, where they'll be reporting here on CBC through the day. Residents will be able to re-enter their city at 9 o'clock this morning. 5,000 people were evacuated 28 days ago. Now, coming up, we're going to talk to some of the people who actually are already there in Flin Flon. They went back early to make sure the community was ready for people to return. So that is some of the grocery store operators. For example, we're going to talk to two of them after 8. Right now, Heather Wells is in with other headlines. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, a Winnipeg woman is threatening legal action after Flair Airlines forced her to remove her hijab before boarding. Kazi Amin says she is not allowed to remove her hijab in public and was humiliated. We'll hear more. And a 23-year-old woman fears for her safety after being attacked in Osborne Village. She was walking home after work late Sunday night from a bus stop on Osborne when she says 2 people came from behind, knocked her to the ground, and stabbed her multiple times. More on that story as well in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
All right. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome.
14 still in Winnipeg here, a high 24 with humidex 26. Chance of showers this morning in the forecast. And that's what we've got. We've got really quiet traffic situation as well. But please call the commuter line if there's any problems out there. 788-3093 is where you reach Sierra. And so I mentioned we're going to take you back to Flin Flon after 8 o'clock. We're going to talk to some of the, one is a grocery store operator. The other works at a PharmaSave in Flin Flon, the manager there. So we're going to talk to both of them about what it feels like. Can you imagine being in a city of 5,000 that's mostly empty? It probably feels quite strange before everyone starts to return in an hour and 2 minutes from now. So we'll take you back to Flin Flon after 8. Also after 8, live with us on CBC, Winnipeg's Jennifer Botterill, who's being inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. She's going to join us. Stay tuned.
Today on Q.
I'm Talia Schlanger sitting in for Tom Power. Cressida Cowell is best known for her series How to Train Your Dragon, which sold over 7 million copies worldwide. She'll tell you about her new book, which stars an ordinary boy and some unexpected magic.
Make it feel very friendly, very accessible, something they want to read.
Q, this morning at 10:30 in Newfoundland, and on CBC Listen, or wherever you get your podcasts. The CBC News is next. Coming up in half an hour, it's The Current.
I'm Susan Ormiston. The world is facing a lot of security challenges right now, and from recruitment to equipment, Canada's military has many issues of its own. Chief of Defence Staff, General Jenny Carignan, is here to talk about it all, coming up on The Cart.
This is World Report. Good morning. I'm Marcia Young. The Trump administration is pushing back against claims its weekend attack on Iran failed to achieve its goals. 3 nuclear sites were hit, with U.S. President Donald Trump immediately claiming Iran's nuclear program was destroyed. But intelligence reports leaked to U.S. media say it only set the work back by a few months. The CBC's Karen Pauls is in Washington following developments. And Karen, reporters questioned Trump this morning about all this at the NATO summit in the Netherlands. What is the president saying today?
Well, U.S. President Donald Trump is drawing a comparison between his airstrikes on Iran and the U.S. use of nuclear bombs in Japan, saying both were used to end wars.
We hear it was obliteration. It was a virtual obliteration. When you take a look at the ground above, don't forget the flame is all underground. But everything above, if you look at the before and the after picture, everything above is burned black. It was, I believe it was total obliteration.
Trump's defense secretary Pete Hegseth at the same NATO panel calling the operation flawless and questioning that leak.
We're doing a leak investigation with the FBI right now because this information is for internal purposes, battle damage assessments, and CNN and others are trying to spin it to make the president look bad when this was an overwhelming success.
Trump says Iran would not have agreed to a ceasefire with Israel if this attack had not been successful.
What's the reaction in Washington?
Well, lawmakers were supposed to get details at classified meetings yesterday, but they were moved to Thursday and Friday. Republicans are downplaying the need for a briefing, but Democrats are accusing the Trump White House of delaying them because of this report. Here's Democratic Senator Peter Welch.
We are all against Iran having a nuclear weapon. And President Trump did something that was very bold. The question is, was it effective? So we really want to get answers.
There are reports Iran moved its enriched uranium ahead of the U.S. strikes. Trump doesn't believe that happened because they acted so quickly. He doesn't rule out further strikes on Iran if it rebuilds its nuclear program, but says that's unlikely. Marcia.
All right. Thank you, Karen.
You're welcome.
The CBC's Karen Pauls in Washington. The shaky ceasefire between Iran and Israel is holding. There are no reports of repeat violations like the ones that angered Donald Trump, but it is not so peaceful in Israel's other war in Gaza. CBC correspondent Chris Brown has more from Jerusalem.
Israel lifted its restrictions on public gatherings, restarted flights at Ben Gurion Airport, and reopened schools. There have been no obvious breaches of the ceasefire from either Iran or Israel after a wobbly beginning. But Israel remains at war in Gaza against Hamas, where it has suffered some of its heaviest combat losses in months. The IDF says 7 soldiers were killed when their armored personnel carrier was attacked, bringing the total number of soldiers dead since Israel broke a ceasefire in late March to 30. Gaza health authorities say more than 56,000 people have been killed by Israeli attacks over the past 20 months, with hundreds of thousands of people suffering from malnourishment. Qatar has said it hopes to use this ceasefire with Iran to restart truce talks with Hamas. Outside Han Yunis, a CBC freelance videographer spoke to Bakr Awada, who said the world has stopped paying attention to Gaza. The UN Human Rights Agency says over 410 people have been killed by gunshots or shells fired by Israel's military in the last few weeks as they tried to reach one of only a handful of food distribution sites in Gaza. Chris Brown, CBC News, Jerusalem.
At the NATO Leaders Summit in The Hague, all alliance members have just formally voted to increase defense spending to 5% of GDP. Here is Secretary General Mark Rutte.
The decisions made today will make NATO much stronger. They also make NATO a fairer alliance, with Europe and Canada stepping up and carrying their fair share of the responsibility for our shared security.
The new spending target is to be achieved by 2035, and spending will be measured differently than it is now. 3.5% must be spent on core defense, that is, troops and weapons. But 1.5% of GDP can be spent on other measures, such as improving cybersecurity and protecting pipelines. Some of Brazil's top military officers are on trial. They're accused of helping former President Jair Bolsonaro attempt a coup after he lost the 2022 election. And yesterday, something significant happened in court. Lieutenant Colonel Mauro Cid was brought in to testify as part of a plea deal he signed. Cid faced the former defense minister, who is a general, and he didn't salute. It was a major break in military protocol. And analysts say it is a sign Brazil's top military brass can no longer act with impunity. British Columbia's health minister is under pressure to fix a pediatric crisis at the province's biggest interior hospital. Kelowna General Hospital closed its pediatric ward in May. It said it did not have enough doctors. As Brady Strachan reports, local politicians say it's a sign the healthcare system is failing.
The goal is to reopen it as soon as they can.
That's BC Health Minister Josie Osborne speaking about the crisis at Kelowna General Hospital. In late May, the Interior Health Authority shut down the pediatric inpatient ward at KGH for a period of at least 6 weeks, citing a shortage of pediatricians. Since the closure, however, multiple healthcare workers have come forward with a different narrative.
We haven't had the right environment to work in.
Earlier this month, Dr. Alicia Mackenzie-Feder told CBC News she and 6 other pediatricians left the hospital 2 years ago because of unmanageable caseloads.
And so it's not that there's a shortage of physicians, it's that the system doesn't exist for them to work safely and sustainably.
KGH is one of only 2 tertiary referral hospitals in the region. With the ward closed, some children are being transferred to other hospitals for ongoing care.
We are in the middle of a collapse of our healthcare system.
Gavin Dew is an MLA for the BC Conservative Party in Kelowna. He's calling on the health minister to address the crisis through a change at the top of the health authority.
She is not talking and listening to frontline people here. They do not have confidence in the current leadership of Interior Health.
With the closure now into its 5th week, neither the health authority nor the minister would say when services will be restored. Officials say one new pediatrician will join KGH this summer, with 2 more coming in the fall. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Kelowna.
Wildfires are forcing Yukon to cut its annual canoe and kayak race short. The Yukon River Quest is one of the longest paddling races in the world. Spokesperson Ava Holland says the decision to shorten the race is difficult but necessary.
It just became clear that it was the right thing to do to not be a drain on resources at a pretty tense time in Dawson. It's disappointing, but I think it's the right and the responsible thing to do when Dawson is dealing with multiple evacuation alerts.
The race course usually follows an old gold rush route from Whitehorse to Dawson City. It will now finish just shy of the original halfway point. About 5,000 residents of Flin Flon are getting the green light to return home. Wildfires forced people in the northern Manitoba city to evacuate about a month ago. As Cameron McIntosh reports, many are anxious to get back.
I thought I'm just going to get something with flames on it to represent kind of the beast that drove us out of there.
A flaming monster is tattooed on Kelly Sherman's forearm.
We ran out of things to do, so I thought we'd go and get tattoos.
29 days ago, a wildfire forced he and his family to evacuate from their home in Flin Flon. They've been living in a hotel. Today, they're able to go home.
9 o'clock when that opens, we're going to be one of the first ones in line. We want to get home.
The fire never did get into Flin Flon, but some homes surrounding it and parts of neighboring Denair Beach were lost. The forest surrounding the city is burnt out. Pauline Nabis didn't lose her home, but says the fire is having a psychological impact on the community.
It's going to be different because of the forest fire, of course.
Most of Manitoba's 21,000 fire evacuees have either returned to their homes or soon will be. 7 wildfires remain out of control, but no longer threaten communities.
We lifted the province-wide wildfire state of emergency.
Earlier this week, Premier Wab Kinew said the province no longer needs emergency powers to manage the fires, but returning evacuees will still feel their presence. Kristen Hayward is with the Manitoba Wildfire Service.
People can still expect to see smoke and active flames at times.
The threat of new fires remains high, with the forecast calling for a hot and dry summer ahead. Cameron McIntosh, CBC News, Winnipeg.
That is the latest national and international news from World Report. News anytime, cbcnews.ca. I'm Marcia Young.
Well, as you just heard, Flin Flon residents have started their engines. A lot of them probably already on the highway because we're now under an hour to when that city will reopen. Good morning, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa in my city here in Winnipeg on 89.3 FM, 990 AM on the app and on YouTube. Thanks for joining us for the morning show on CBC Information Radio. This half hour on the program, we're going to talk to 2 people who are already in Flin Flon, and that is because they have been running businesses there in the area, getting ready for people to return. So we're going to check in with someone who is at a pharmacy and someone who is at a food store, and we'll find out more about what it's felt like even, right, with the city being so empty and now people are about to return. So stay tuned for that interview. Also this half hour on the show, Winnipeg's Jennifer Botterill will be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame. She's going to join us live this half hour. Stay with us. First to Heather Wells with a quick news headline. Good morning.
Good morning. Well, thousands of people are on the road this morning heading to the city they left 4 weeks ago, and they're not sure what they'll find when they arrive in Flin Flon. Mayor George Fontaine expects the city is largely the same as when they left, although he says wildfire left catastrophic damage for some surrounding areas. We're going to hear more from George Fontaine coming up. A 23-year-old Winnipeg woman is recovering in hospital after being stabbed in her back, stomach, legs, and left eye. That attack happened on Sunday, just before midnight in Osborne Village. She says she now fears for her safety in Winnipeg and wants to go back to India. Those stories and more in our next local news coming up at 8:30.
Thanks, Heather. With the day's weather, here's Abby Hadiami.
Southern Manitoba and the northern part of the province, we're already seeing temperatures around 15 and 16 degrees. Winnipeg at this time, 16 through the morning into the afternoon. The skies will stay mostly cloudy. Just a slight chance of showers in the forecast. That would pass, and we'll see a mild and comfortable day, a high of 24.
In the commute this morning, if you need us, 788-3093 is where you can reach us. And you still might want to check 511 for highways because, of course, even though we don't have a state of emergency, we have busy highways with evacuees traveling to and from communities. And then also we do still obviously have fires that people are fighting. So 511 to check that. Well, we're approaching the 1 month mark now since wildfires forced Flin Flon residents to evacuate their homes, businesses, and the whole city. The mandatory evacuation order will be lifted at 9 a.m. Alison Dallas Funk is Flin Flon's deputy mayor.
Council met via Zoom and had a council meeting, and we passed a resolution to rescind the mandatory evacuation order. That will be in effect June 25th, Wednesday at 9 a.m. So the evacuation order is being lifted for Flin Flon June 25th, Wednesday, 9 a.m. That means community can come in and out as usual.
So that was Flin Flon Deputy Mayor Alison Dallas Funk speaking in a video she shared on the Flin Flon Facebook page, reiterating that today's the day. Evacuees will return home to the city starting at 9 o'clock this morning. Now, many people who run businesses, though, including essential services, are already back in Flin Flon, including my next guest. My next guest is Susan Thompson, manager of PharmaSave. She is in the community getting the store ready for residents who are about to return, and she joins us via Zoom. Thank you so much. I know the day is going to be busy. We really appreciate you being with CBC today.
No problem.
What's it feel like in the city?
Well, I arrived on Sunday and it was pretty desolate. It was kind of an eerie feeling up in my neighborhood. I think there's one RCMP officer and a conservation officer and myself. So the evenings are very quiet. There is for the early returnees, there is a curfew. So you have to be on your own property at a certain time. So yeah, it's been really quiet.
What's the curfew about? Did they explain that to you?
Yeah, it was just, I think, safety measures again. They didn't want the policing and firefighters to have to deal with anything other than the fire. So basically, they just want you home and want you safe.
Now, I know during the evacuation, you had to make some quick changes to your operations. I understand transferring prescriptions to other pharmacies, maybe even a new IT system and redirecting phone lines so people could get medications. That must have been really quite something, Susan.
It was. We have a fantastic IT department, though, and some really great supports at our head office. So while I was on the road evacuating, my husband, who's also a pharmacist and works here with me, he was in Moose Jaw. Our son plays hockey and goes to school there. So we actually have a home base there as well. And so he was there coordinating all of that while I was on the road. And by Friday, our IT department had us into our server. We were working remotely from a pharmacy in Moose Jaw. They were very gracious and generous to give us some space, computer, fax machine, printer in order to facilitate all the transfers. And then our phone lines had been redirected. The store phone lines were redirected to our cell phones. So we were taking calls. The first week and a half was pretty steady. My husband took the calls. I did the transfers. And it was nonstop. But we were just really very thankful to our IT department and our support that they could get that up and going right away, because it was just one less thing that people would have to worry about then.
Right. So what's been undoing all of that prep been like? Are you what should people expect if they're returning and they need access to medications and such? Where are you at now?
So my husband came back last week just to make sure infrastructure and that sort of thing within the store was up and running, that our internet and phone services were not damaged. And then I came back on Sunday and just kind of getting cleaned up. We obviously left in a bit of a rush. So just cleaning up some things that had been left on the Wednesday, the 28th of May, when we had to leave, and preparing, placing orders, some things like that, so that we're prepared for today. A lot of people have called ahead, planning, making sure, I only have 2 or 3 days of medication left. Should I get it filled again where I'm at right now, or will there be stock? And so people are being, pretty proactive in that sense. So we're hoping it's not too crazy, but we're really excited to see everybody.
Oh, I bet. Within an hour, you might start to see people coming into town. On some of the other things, I mean, in terms of, we know there was no damage right in Flin Flon, we understand, but how was your home? How was the business? What did it smell like? The surrounding area, what was that like in terms of?
Yeah, there's a campfire smell, definitely. My home is perfectly fine. Again, a little bit of smoke smell. We had to clean out the fridge, but other than that, the deep freeze was fine. There were intermittent power outages, but from what we've understood from Manitoba Hydro in our talks with them about the store, they were minimal and not for an extended period of time.
Okay.
So that was a good thing. But yeah, the store again also just a little bit of a smoke smell. But no damage.
Have you lost, what's the impact been on the bottom line of the business? You pivoted somewhat, but what does that look like for you financially?
Well, essentially, we've lost a month of revenue. So that's a hit. But, it's something we'll recover from. We're really excited to see our patients back. And we did see the odd one in Moose Jaw while we were there. So that was really nice to see a familiar face, and just talking to the people when they did call. Again, I think it was nice for them to hear a familiar voice and have some reassurance that part of the evacuation wasn't something that they had to worry about. We would still be able to service them.
What concerns have come up for you now that you're home? What questions do you have moving forward about what you've been through, and what does that look like? We've been talking a lot about the fact that you're so close to Denair Beach. I mean, that we need to acknowledge that, because you guys are like kind of one community there, even though it's across the border.
Yeah, that was, we're devastated for them, obviously. It was, leaving here in just such a rush state, I guess, was maybe something personally I would think about planning a little bit in advance when this is happening, packing up maybe beforehand, and also with the store, just looking back some things that maybe we could do just to better prepare for that. In a broader sense, I guess, specifically to pharmacy, I think the College of Pharmacists in Manitoba, there's a lot more things that Saskatchewan pharmacists are allowed to do that Manitoba pharmacists aren't. So that's something that would have made our job a little easier as well if the scope of practice for pharmacists in Manitoba was maybe a little bit broader. But that's specific, obviously, to our profession. But
thank you very much for joining us this morning, Susan, and enjoy your day in so much as you can. I know it's a day of complicated emotions, but we appreciate you being with us.
No problem. Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
You too. In Flin Flon already, that's the manager of PharmaSave. The mandatory evacuation order for Flin Flon is being lifted today. Now, normally we wouldn't do this, but I have a guest that I'm only going to ask one question to, and then we're going to tell Marjorie Dalhouse to have a full conversation with her on Radio Noon today. And that is because we had some challenges reaching our guest. But that guest is also in Flin Flon. Carrie Wood, born and raised in Flin Flon, started working with Eddie's Family Foods there when she was a student 34 years ago. She's assistant manager, joining us via Zoom. Hi there, Carrie.
Good morning.
Sorry about the challenges hooking up with you today.
Oh, no problem. It happens.
Yeah. So listen, I'm really hoping that you'll be available to talk to us on Radio Noon once people are back in town about how everything's feeling. But while I do have you in our remaining time here on Information Radio, the morning show, how are you doing? How are you feeling about, your friends and neighbors are going to return in like 40 minutes?
It's overwhelming. It's very exciting, and I can't wait to see everyone. I was evacuated to certain places. I got to see some family, but not very many people. So I'm quite excited.
What's it been like for you? We just had a conversation about, what it was like for Susan, being so quiet in town. What did that feel like to be back there and for nobody to be around?
It was pretty eerie. Usually there's, kids playing outside, there's traffic coming and going, there's always something going on, and there was nothing. And quite honestly, coming in, I live right on the outskirts of town by a park. And honestly, every time I went to my car, I was watching for bears because with no people around, they like to come around.
Did you see any? Like, what's that like? I know that around other fire areas, especially, there's also bears that are coming out of and other wildlife because of what happened with the fires, that they're coming into town. Did you see any of them?
I didn't myself know. I've got word that they are out at the local dump now that all the businesses have been going through all their, spoiled food and that. So they're having a heyday out at the dump.
How well is the store stocked? What should people expect when they get back? I can see the shelves behind you, so it's looking pretty good.
This way, yes. This side, no. We did get a small truck in on Monday with some perishable, some produce, some meat, and some dairy, just so we could supply to Creighton as they came back starting Sunday. We do have some things for Flin Flon to return today as well. Tomorrow we are getting a full stock truck. So we should be good, well, and stocked up for everybody to refill their fridges and freezers as they find out what they need to get.
What emotions are you feeling today?
Oh, I'm ecstatic. I'm ecstatic to get back to a routine, get back to normal, for my husband and my pets to come home, and to see all the wonderful customers again, just to get back to that daily routine.
Carrie, I hope you stay on the line. Our producer and director will make some arrangements, and maybe we can get you on Radio Noon later today. I hope your store is full of your friends, family, and neighbors. And thank you so much for being with us live from Flin Flon.
For sure. Thank you very much.
That's Carrie Wood, Assistant Manager of Eddie's Family Foods in Flin Flon. The city of 5,000 people will be full later today as the evacuation order has now been lifted and people are making their way back home.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. It's news you can trust, delivered when you want and where you want on Canada's News app. Now with CBC Radio 1, local and live. Download the CBC News app for free.
It is 8:24 a.m. and as you've been hearing in the news.
Sarna try to bat that out of midair. Botterill gets it back to the line. Ward back to Botterill. Botterill shoots and scores.
So we had a lot of highlights we could have chosen from this morning to celebrate Winnipeg's Jennifer Botterill. Yesterday, she got the call that many hockey players dream of all around the world. She will be inducted into the Hockey Hall of Fame this November. Botterill's won 3 Olympic golds. She's won a silver. She's won 5 Women's World Championship golds. She's won 3 silvers there. These days, of course, we all watch her do her NHL analysis on Hockey Night in Canada and TNT in the U.S. We've reached her this morning in Manitoba. She's at West Hawk Lake. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Who cares about me? How are you?
I'm doing really well. Thank you. It was a very exciting day yesterday, and as you mentioned, I'm visiting my parents here at West Hawk, so amazing to be back home and to have the chance to share the news with my parents, my husband, my girls are here, so I think I'm still smiling.
What would little Jennifer think of this moment?
Oh, I think it's beyond what little Jennifer could have possibly imagined growing up in Winnipeg and in Wildwood Park. So I think that's something that when I reflect upon this amazing honor and the journey that I've been on, I think the moments that perhaps stand out the most are when I was little and growing up in Wildwood Park and playing basement hockey with my brother or walking to the end of the street to go to the outdoor rink. So I think that's when it all started for me. And so it's pretty special to think about, as a kid I just watched the Olympics. It wasn't even hockey on the Olympics. I remember watching the Olympic Games and hoping and dreaming that one day I could represent our country. And just to think about the path and how women's hockey has grown over the years, it's been such an exciting time. And I'm just overjoyed and so honored by this.
Thank you on behalf of all women, especially Manitoba women like myself who grew up here, for paving the way. I mean, just really, there were no programs for women in hockey, and the thought of being professional and also in announcing, in broadcasting in sports, also paving the way. I mean, I love watching you.
Oh, I really take that to heart, and thank you. And I think there's so many as well that have done the work before, and I think that's one thing when someone asked yesterday, I thought about a legacy that I was building. And I think for me, I'm just trying to do my best every single day. But I guess I'm hopeful that I said, not every kid has to play hockey now, but I love that it's a choice. And I'm hopeful that all of us in the industry, that it's, that we're taking the right steps to create more choice and more opportunity for others in the future.
We talked to your dad yesterday. He told this story about you and your ringette days, and you asked him to go to the rink with a bucket of pucks so you could try hockey. What do you remember about that?
Well, I remember because my older brother Jason played, and so we had the little net outside in our driveway, and we had a net set up in our basement. But at that point, my friends were playing ringette, and that's what I had played as a sport, and I loved it. But I was sort of drawn to the sport of hockey and seeing what my brother was doing. And so that's exactly how it started, that we went down to the Wildwood Community Club, and I went down, and sometimes it was my dad that would take me for taking shots on the net or joining a game of pickup hockey. And sometimes it was my mom. Sometimes I was with my brother. But that's where it really started for me, that I quickly fell in love with the sport. And then over the next several years, and then there was the announcement that they were going to have women's hockey in the Olympic Games for the first time. And then I think all of my dreams and my highest ambitions became clear on what I wanted to strive towards and what I wanted to work towards. But I don't know if my dad told you, they always said they knew it was special because they always could see my smile when I was playing hockey. They said they knew that it was something pretty special.
Do you know, I bet that most people ask you about what you'd like to say to the young girls and women coming up, which you've kind of already alluded to, and you do so much work to continue to grow the sport for women. But I want to ask what you're thinking about in terms of the women that came before you and loved hockey but never got that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I hope that they feel so important on this journey. And, if I sort of think, even a couple of years ago, someone asked me a question if I wished I was still playing in the PWHL. And, I've taken my daughters to the games in Toronto and just been so happy watching it. And a couple of years ago, they had the PWHL, they did a sort of a connected all-star weekend. And I was up in the booth calling it with Sportsnet. And I just remember when the anthem was playing, and it was moments before we were going on the air, but I was so filled with emotion and excitement. And I said, you know what, as a player, this was what we wished and we hoped for, to have this professional platform. So for me, it was just a sense of, I think, gratitude and fulfillment that these players were living out this dream now. And I guess I'm hopeful that all the players before my era feel the same sense of appreciation and gratitude and knowing they were such an integral part of creating this change and this growth and paving the way for all of us. And I remember when I first made the Olympic team, France St. Louis, I was 18, France St. Louis was 39, and how amazing she was with the younger players on the team, what she believed in for the future of the sport. So I'm just really hopeful for the players before us that they feel the sense of how extremely valuable they were and what they've created for the future.
Congratulations, Jennifer Botterill. Thank you for making time for CBC Manitoba today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to connect, Marcy. Thank you.
Take care. Jennifer Botterill, 3-time Olympic gold medalist, 5-time Women's World Hockey Champion, inducted into the Hall of Fame this November. That announcement just came out yesterday. She is here visiting a family in Manitoba. The news is next.
This is CBC News. Good morning. I'm Heather Wells in Winnipeg. At 8:31, it is 16 degrees. Clouds are going to move in through the morning. A slight chance of showers and a high today of 24. Thousands of Manitobans are back on the move this morning, returning to Flin Flon after almost a month of being forced out by wildfire. CBC reporter Megan Ketchison is at a meeting point here in Winnipeg, and Megan joins us live.
Well, I'm at the Holiday Inn on Ellis near Route 90, where it's been a steady stream of cabs with people coming in from all over Winnipeg who have been staying in Winnipeg with family and friends who are from Flin Flon. Now, about 5,000 people are heading back home to that northern city today. There are buses that are leaving from here in about, people are asked to meet here in about a half an hour. The buses will be leaving from this location at the Holiday Inn. It's actually a Red Cross evacuation center, a checkpoint, and so there is a little bit of confusion. I was speaking with Mayor George Fontaine. He says people are a little anxious and unsure of what they'll find once they get back home.
I think it's going to be a different feeling for everybody. I know that there's going to be some specialists in Flin Flon waiting to meet people who might need them for, mental assurances and that sort of a thing. So we'll do what we can on that part. But it's going to have an effect on people. They're going to be cautious for a while.
I was speaking to one gentleman, Michael Clark, and he was staying here with his sister. He came with just some bags of food. He says he's got groceries. He's not sure what to expect when he gets home. He's not looking forward to a 9-hour bus ride, but he's relieved that this is over. He does say it does feel a bit disorganized. They didn't find out about the buses until 6 o'clock last night, and they're not exactly sure where they're supposed to be going. If you are coming to the Holiday Inn here on Ellis, you're being directed to go around the side where the large buses are waiting. Reporting live, Megan Ketchison, CBC News.
Thanks so much, Megan. Now, wildfires continue to burn in northern Manitoba, and that smoke is impacting air quality in that area. Environment Canada today out with an air quality warning for Lynn Lake. It advises people with medical conditions, the elderly or very young, to take precautions. A 23-year-old woman now fears for her safety after being attacked in Osborne Village. CBC is only using her first name. Tanpreet was walking home after work late Sunday night from a bus stop on Osborne. She says 2 people came from behind, knocked her to the ground, and stabbed her multiple times. She has injuries to her back, stomach, legs, and left eye. She says the attackers took her phone, credit cards, and ID.
I felt unconscious and I fell on the ground, and when paramedic and the police came, there were just lights around me. I was just thinking I will die. I can't live anymore.
Tanpreet says she no longer feels safe in Winnipeg and wants to go home to India. Winnipeg police say the Major Crimes Unit is investigating. So far, no arrests have been made. A Winnipeg woman is threatening legal action after Flair Airlines forced her to remove her hijab before boarding. Kazi Amin's passport photo was taken before she wore the head covering, which is a religious head covering, and Flair said she looked like a different person. Amin had already cleared customs and security when she was asked to remove her hijab.
I don't know what else I could do. I removed my hijab. In public, we are not allowed to remove hijab in public. We can remove hijab only in front of our family. This is humiliated for me. I feel so humiliated.
Transport Canada says passengers don't have to remove religious head coverings unless it causes alarm during security screening. And then a private space should be offered. Flair Airlines is investigating and has apologized. Well, some mouth-watering news for strawberry lovers. Manitoba-grown berries are making an early return to store shelves. Jane Giesbrecht owns Lost Creek Acres U-Pick Farm northeast of McGregor. She hopes to open by Monday, a little earlier than usual, and says the hot, dry weather in May helped the plants bloom, and all that's needed now is just a little moisture to finish off the fruit.
We're definitely seeing smaller fruit this year. Just the way things have been a little bit drier, I think, has contributed a lot to that. But yeah, still lots of, a ton of flowers, a ton of fruit out there. So yeah, now we're just waiting for it to ripen.
St. Leon Garden Center in Winnipeg says local berries arrived early this year and they're already on the store shelves. They've been there since the weekend. You can find more news updated throughout the day at cbc.ca/Manitoba.
All right. Thank you very much,
You're
Heather.
welcome.
Abby, last look at the weather.
Yeah, it's going to be more like cloudy conditions in the southern part of the province. We're going to see cool temperatures up north and smoke still affecting Lynn Lake. Winnipeg right now, it is sunny outside, warming up close to 22, and that's what it's going to look like in most of the regions.
All right, thanks, Abby. Traffic, quiet all morning. That's really good. We're about to see what it looks like when Portage and Main opens on Friday. And also on Sunday, the transit changes, so it's going to get busy at some point. But we've had a pretty good week commuting-wise. Want to mention Radio Noon's call-in. They're talking about summer vacay. It's almost here for all students in Manitoba. How are you going to spend it? What are some of your favorite things to check out? Colin Ferguson from Travel Manitoba is on Radio Noon today with Marjorie Dalhouse between 12:30 and 1 for your calls. So make sure you check it out. Big thanks to our associate producers, May McKillop, Marshall Hodgins, and Chidi Akuma, community reporters Shanley Vidal, producer Robin Sommerfeld, as well as Leif Larson, the senior producer of audio at CBC Manitoba. Take care. Be well, everyone. I'm Marcy Marcusa.